Got everybody's attention. Getting good at it. Seeing a quorum of voting members, I call the August 4th Cincinnati School Board meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's the most important part.
I can't wait till our little people come back to school so we can have the kids singing the Pledge of Allegiance, saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Treasurer Wagner, please call the attendance roll.
Mr. Craig.
Here.
Mr. Crossan.
Here.
Mr. Lindy.
Here.
Ms. Mapp.
Here.
Mrs. Weinberg. Vice President Bolton.
Present.
President Moffett.
Here. Vice President Bolton, please explain the virtual hearing, the public process.
Thank you very much. Members of the public who are online and wish to speak during our hearing of the public this evening may do so by clicking the chat button now. The chat feature will be open for your requests for 5 minutes. If you would like a direct response to your questions, please make sure to share your name, your affiliation to the district, your school community, your topic, and your contact information.
Thank you. The chair will now entertain a motion and a second to approve the August 4th business meeting agenda.
So moved.
Second. Treasurer Wagner, please call the voting roll.
Yes.
Mr. Crossan.
Yes.
Mr. Lindy.
Yes.
Ms. Mapp.
Yes.
Vice President Bolton.
Yes.
President Moffett.
Yes, and that means tonight's agenda is approved as posted. Let's get into our new business. Do board members have any acknowledgements or announcements? Board Member Crossett.
Yes, tonight is my 1-year anniversary of being on the board. And I just wanted to thank,
Congratulations. Yay.
just wanted to thank my fellow board members. It's been a pleasure working with all of you. I've learned a lot, and it's just been enjoyable on the policy committee and on the finance committee. I also want to thank the superintendent, the treasurer. It's been a really great pleasure working with you. And also the team, the management team out here is superb. So thank you all for making my first year really great. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Great.
Well, congratulations on your first year.
I survived.
And he wants to return.
Yeah, that's a testament. Board Member Craig.
I know it, not to steal the thunder from the superintendent later, but I just wanted to thank all the folks who came out in our community to the welcome back. It was a tremendous group of folks that were out there. It was a beautiful day to be out, and truly was one of the most rewarding parts was to seeing the number of principals and assistant principals who had ran out of stuff because that many people from our community came through and said they needed the book bags and the books and the papers and pens and everything else. So again, it's a testament to all the hard work that folks did to put it on, and really, again, to the superintendent's team for working hard to make sure you heard nothing bad happen. You notice that we can do really great things with our students and our parents and our families, and it probably should get more coverage when great things like that happen. So I was really motivated by the things that I saw, and some of the partners that were there, like Joe Burrow Foundation and others, who really are stepping up with our kids. So it's a great time.
Congratulations to our teams that put that together. We've got some awesome folks in our district. Any other kudos, announcements? I'm kind of excited because August means it's time for the kids to come back, and if you don't know, those are my favorite people, are the kids. Superintendent Murphy, please present any announcements and retirements that you may have, except for one. You may not say one name on your list, but other than that, you can go. Don't say that name.
Don't say that name. I won't. We'll project it, but I won't say it. All right. So we do have certificated employees who are retiring that we want to acknowledge. The first is Gail L. Castle, a teacher at Woodford Academy. Carol J. Connor, a teacher at Fairview Clifton German Language School. Susan G. Fox, a teacher at Euler School. Catherine L. Krieger, a teacher at Academy of World Languages. Glenda C. Nix, a teacher with juvenile court. Fred M. Schneider, a teacher at Walnut Hills High School. Michelle B. Seif, thank you. One more time. Sifke, Michelle B. Sifke, an intervention specialist in our auxiliary services department. On the civil service side, we have Sarah Harris, a student services assistant at Hayes Porter School. Andrea Robinson, a paraprofessional with Aspire.
And
The name which we will not mention.
You
Go
want to say your
ahead.
own name? Jennifer M. Wagner, Treasurer, CFO, Treasurer's Department. And I do have a couple of announcements. One, just wanted to share the picture from when our Business Advisory Council was recognized by the state of Ohio. There we go. Yes, with the 4-star award. Congratulations to them. And then our annual golf outing led by Josh Harden and our athletics team. Thank you for everyone who came out to support that day. And then I do also want to just acknowledge not only the NAACP Block Party, but a lot of summer activities that, even though the children are away from us, Cincinnati Public Schools maintains its presence in the community. So on July 19th, we were present at the NAACP Block Party. So deeply appreciative to those who organized and supported that event. And the consummate back-to-school event was absolutely amazing, as Board Member Craig mentioned. Over 1,000 book bags given away. Physicals took place that day. It was just great, not only for our staff, departments, schoolhouses, but the community at large and our partners as well. And Mother Nature greatly appreciated her participation on that day. All righty.
So even though it's the summertime, we're still busy around here. We're doing some great things. Thank you to everybody. Vice President Bolton, the chair is now yours to conduct the hearing of the public.
thank you very much. We are now at the item on our agenda for hearing the public. Each speaker will have 2 minutes and will address all comments to the presiding officer. If you're online, once a request to speak has been granted, you'll be invited to enter. You should click on the camera icon to go interactive. Provide your name, your affiliation to the district, your school, community, your topic, and your contact information if you wish to have a response. This request is consistent with board protocol, and we appreciate your help. In the unusual event that someone is not willing to follow the protocol, we reserve the right to end that person's time. Again, each person will have 2 minutes to speak. When the timer goes off, your time is up. Please refrain from discussing any personnel matters. And after speaking, if you're online, you'll briefly see the welcome screen again as you transition back to live stream meeting. Finally, we ask that your public commentary be respectful of all listeners. Rob, do we have anybody online? Let's start with the one person online, and then we have one person in person besides President Sellers, if she's speaking this evening, and she's not speaking this evening. So one online and one in person. Thank you, Rob.
Thank
Herschel
you. Our one
Daniels.
online speaker today will be Herschel Daniels. Herschel Daniels, you have 2 minutes. You can go ahead and begin.
Thank you. My name is Herschel Daniels. I'm with the Buckeye Black Chamber of Commerce, and my company is Herschel Daniels Jr. LLC. We previously started to work with the Superintendent's Investigative Committee relative to our proposal to create a revenue anticipation note with the Cincinnati Public Schools. We met on January 17th, and we were waiting for you to pass your budget on July 9th. You did do so, and I notified you that we are ready to re-engage now that you have your budget in hand, and that the administration has set out its education policy, and that now we have statutory law in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the Genius Act, and other actions of the administration to create that. We now have our underwriting group in hand. And again, we also have the PNC $88 billion community benefit agreement already in place that ends on December 2025. And most important, we have an upcoming meeting with our partners, over 1,000 of them, that are all focused on helping you make Cincinnati a national model around a creation of a revenue anticipation note. And that revenue anticipation note will provide the necessary funding to make up the gap that you are experiencing based on the politics at the state level. I want to thank you very much for all that you are doing, and we will be in contact with the superintendent's committee to re-engage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Daniels. And now we'll hear from Christian Davis. Good evening.
My name is, sorry, my name is, okay. Hello, my name is Christian Davis. I am a CPS parent and the founder of Cincinnati Parent Empowerment Network. First and foremost, I want to thank and congratulate the district on hosting another successful back-to-school bash. The event was thoughtfully planned, and it's clear that the district collaborated extensively with community partners and organizations to elevate the experience to the highest level. I also want to extend a special thank you to Superintendent Murphy and District Parent Champion LaRonda Thomas, both of whom joined us live on our CPEN Facebook page to share important information with families. Superintendent Murphy's video earned 3,600 views, and Ms. Thomas' video received 1,000 views. Both were shared multiple times to amplify their reach. This year, our organization proudly participated at the event, and we distribute 578 books to CPS students. Today, we have 3 asks related to parent and family engagement. Inclusion of the district parent champion at board meetings. We kindly request that the board consider including Ms. Thomas in each board meeting. We also ask that the district allocate time for Ms. Thomas to share updates, announcements, recognitions, and information related to parent engagement. This would not only elevate her role, but help more CPS families become familiar with the services and supports provided by Ms. Thomas. Second, spotlighting resource coordinators. We ask that the district consider highlighting all resource coordinators, with approximately 65 coordinators featuring 2 each week would allow full coverage of the academic year. Spotlighting these coordinators will help families put faces to available support systems. And lastly, live streaming Sundays with Shauna. We are excited about the upcoming series. Our request is that these sessions be streamed live on the district's Facebook page and other social media platforms. This will enable parents who cannot attend in person to participate virtually and remain informed. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you so much, Ms. Davis. Appreciate it. And that concludes the portion of the meeting regarding hearing the public.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve a resolution to request a waiver for alcohol to be served at an event at the School for Creative and Performing Arts to benefit the Starshine Hospice Program at Cincinnati Children's.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Do we need a reading for that, or did everyone read
You have
that?
to do at least the title.
I did the title.
Can you do the title?
That was the title.
Okay, the title's been entered.
So the title has been entered for the record. Treasurer Wagner, please call the roll.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Mr. Crossett?
Yes.
Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
Ms. Mapp?
Yes.
Vice President Bolton?
Yes.
President Moffett?
Yes. I now need a motion to approve a resolution opposing the U.S. Department of Education's decision to withhold federal Title 2A, 3A, and 4A funds, and approving the district joining a lawsuit to demand the release of funds resolution.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second and a third. And is there any discussion? Board Member Lindy.
Thank you. I wanted to just make sure I was tracking. A lot's happened since our last board meeting. But as I understand it, we joined a lawsuit and did sue the Trump administration, subsequent to which this Trump administration reversed its position and has decided to release these funds. I'm not saying that's entirely because of our lawsuit. I'm still very glad we filed it. But this is, I imagine, a resolution that we put together before we knew that the Trump administration was going to change course. Is all that accurate?
Yes, sir, it is.
Great.
So let me, this was all done exactly as you've stated. In speaking to our general counsel, and Mr. Horn, you can definitely come up. I understand that we are now given the first allotment that would be due July 1st, but there are other future disbursements. And I suggested that we continue this momentum in the event that those disbursements are delayed, we wouldn't have.
Yeah, I think we stay in the fight, no question. For anybody who's watching, I wanted to make sure that people knew that we did file this lawsuit. We were one of a handful of school districts, teachers' unions, parent organizations that sued, and that the Trump administration changed its position, and that's good news. And my level of trust in the future is low. And I think staying in this makes a ton of sense. And thank you.
Any other commentary or discussion? Mr. Hoyne, would you like to add anything about the resolution?
Yeah, just wanted to thank the board for its support and also the other groups that we joined in. One important thing is we were able to join this lawsuit to have the funds or to sue to have the funds released without spending any CPS dollars on this because of contributions of some of the other participants in the lawsuit. So that's just another advantage about joining this. The treasurer may be able to speak to whether funds have been released. They have been released to the states at this point. I'm not sure whether the states have then released them to us yet.
Not in Ohio, but Mike has a presentation that he's going to do.
The only other thing I'd add is there's a future payment, I think, due in October. We have dropped, or the plaintiffs have dropped the demand for a preliminary injunction, which is asking the court to do emergency relief because we had not had the funds released. The emergency part is over, but the case is not dismissed at this point, in part because we're asking for some assurances that those future payments will be made on time.
Thank you. Vice President Walton?
How many, to your knowledge, how many school districts participated in this?
We were the only one, as far as I know, in the continental, or in the lower 48. There were 3 school districts in Alaska that joined as well, Fairbanks, Anchorage, and one other. But we were the only school district in the lower 48 to have joined.
Big dog, thank you.
And I will say, it's been inquired, we're going to be talking to a few more who have asked us as well. So, trendsetters. Board Member Matt.
I just want to say thank you to the administration for your swift and persistent effort to advocate for our district and just for public schools overall. And I just really commend you on the hard work that you all put into this. So thank you.
Thanks. Lots of others. There were declarations that we submitted and just really good team effort.
Any other comments? So Treasurer Wagner, we need a vote.
Thank you.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Mr. Crossett?
Yes.
Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
Ms. Mapp?
Yes.
Vice President Bolton?
Yes.
President Moffett?
Yes. Thank you to the team and everyone that put that together. And thank you to my colleagues, because we stood up. We did. Board member, we're at the point now for presentations and discussions, and up next is our CPS Foundation update. So this is a section for Board Member Crossett and Superintendent Murphy to give us an update, if any, around the foundation. For the purposes of the public, can you share a little around the status of the foundation, what the foundation is charged to do? And I know that we're also going to talk about it a little later, so we're going to kind of combine those two. It's scheduled to be talked about around the MOU a little bit later, but if you could just kind of update us. Board Member Crossett is our liaison with the ABC Foundation, and Superintendent Murphy is our staff.
Thank you. Can I do it from here, or do I go down to the podium?
You can do it from there. If you want to feel like you're,
No,
part of it, you
You
can
don't
do
want to go to
that.
the well?
Yeah, I'm happy to do it from here. So yes, just by way of background, our longtime supporter, nonprofit supporter, ABC, Activities Beyond the Classroom, has been in the process of migrating to become the Cincinnati Public School Foundation now. So it's in the works, it's in process. There's two primary activities that have been going on. One is rebranding, and they got a grant to do rebranding, and they've been taking a study on what is the best naming or taglines or other kinds of descriptions of the new foundation will be. And so they've solicited some input from us, and they've also been in the process of strategizing their initial campaign process. And they've gotten some information from us, and they're getting information from potential donors, and they're kind of melding all that to come up with a campaign plan in the first year. And this first year campaign plan is critical for the long-term success of the foundation. Let's see, what else did I want to say? They're primarily going to be a soft launch of that campaign this fall and a hard launch probably in December or January of 2026. So it's there's not exactly like deadlines and time pressures that we're up against right now until we get closer to that hard launch date, which I think hasn't really been announced yet. But so those are the two main things that the foundation has been working on. And we've had Shauna and myself, Mike Gustin, have been attending the meetings. I think Board President Moffitt got to attend a meeting recently. So we are in fairly constant communication with them. And so we're excited about the potential. The potential is really good upside in terms of being able to provide more financial resources for the schools. The only thing I did want to address a little bit specifically, and I'm not sure, I think some of, I guess there's an item on the agenda for board matters to discuss the MOU. I think we can do a little bit of that now, but I'd like to do a lot more of that at our next meeting. So that when Mary is here, and she can all be included because Mary's got some specific questions. And so it doesn't have to be all discussed or brought out now. And I may not have all the answers to the questions around the MOU. Some of it we might need to get help from Dan Hoying, who can better interpret some of whatever the questions are. But the one specific thing I did want to talk about was because it's coming up next on our agenda is a resolution regarding appointing two folks that we've selected to be on the board. What's unique now is the foundation is we have ex officio members, myself as the liaison, Superintendent Murphy, and Assistant Treasurer Gustin. We are ex officio members of the foundation board, and which means we're non-voting members. But we get to select and recommend two voting members to the board who would be representing CPS interests. And we've done a good job of soliciting candidates, vetting those candidates, and hopefully that will approve their recommendation of those candidates. Dan, you might have to help me with the language on this, but the Cincinnati Public School Foundation Board has to go through a process to approve them also. And there's a couple reasons for that. The primary reason is that in order for the foundation to retain its 501c3 tax status, it has to be independent from us. And so they do have to sort of go through this perfunctory process to approve who we recommend. And basically who we recommend, and I've spoken with the president of their board, they will accept whoever we recommend unless there's some giant glaring conflict of interest or some giant problem that we didn't foresee. But basically, their view is whoever we recommend, they're going to approve. They just have to go through the process, especially from a tax status standpoint. But Dan, what's the language that, I can never remember what it says. But.
Yeah, from the foundation MOU, it says that the board's community rep, the foundation board has the right to approve the community member recommended by CPS's Board of Education, such approval not to be unreasonably withheld.
Right, it's not to be unreasonably withheld, which means basically they've got to have a really good reason not to, it's got to be like a real blatant conflict of interest or something that we've missed in our vetting process. So that's a little bit specifics on that part of the MOU that I thought might be good to talk about since we are, now our next item on the agenda is to resolution for these two folks to recommend. So that's my update.
Thank you. Superintendent Murphy, did you want to add anything?
I just would like to just add one thing, and this just came out Friday, but ABC is planning the first fundraiser at the Soapbox Salon, and it is on Sunday, October the 12th. It's right after a Sundays with Shauna, so it'll be a busy day, but there is a fundraiser being planned.
Well, I definitely look forward to getting that invitation via email. Board members, do you have any questions? And I just want to provide a little bit of clarity.
Well,
Because
before, we're going to have, be sure to remember that we'll have more time to talk about this and a more formal updated presentation from the foundation folks at our next meeting, for whatever that's worth. Sorry to
Sure,
yeah.
no, you're fine. This is on the agenda because several board members have expressed some concern around needing to further clarify the vision, mission, and values of the foundation. It's been more than one or two, and our MOU, which is on board docs for people to read, has also needing just a little bit more clarity. And so as we've engaged over the past few months, I think it's prudent for us to further provide some meat to the bones of the MOU. So I wanted the board in totality to work on some of the specifics. Is ABC fundraising only? Are they going to be a vendor for the district? I think we need to further clarify what the roles are, what the expectations are, and then maybe adjust the MOU or at least go into this with all of us on the same page, because I think that there's some confusion around, are we just paying for their administrative fees and then nothing else? Yet we have RFPs that are being carried over from year to year because that's in a vendor position. So we need to clarify those things immediately. It's not really a wait and see. We either take them out and then we can kind of clarify those things, or we need to have done those. And do we set the goals of the foundation, or do we tell them the projects that they're wanting to work on? I know Superintendent Murphy, when I did attend a meeting, she shared some projects that she was wanting to lift up that the district needs. So is that driving the fundraising efforts of the foundation? I just think we need to have some things spelled out so that the foundation is not, they are a separate entity, but they should not, and I did not vote for them to be a separately functioning out here on their own type entity without the district. They are supposed to be working in tandem, and I expected Superintendent Murphy to be at the table with designing the vision, and in addition to the board member, but reporting that back. So there's been some question from multiple board members around the need to clarify and what are they working for. And so that's what this purpose is for. I'm absolutely certain that when ABC does come, that they'll give us some of their updated information. But I do think that there's some due diligent work that the board can do to further clarify what our expectation level is for the foundation moving forward. So I've received some questions, but I want the board members to be able to ask those so that you're at least able to know what those questions are so that you can take them back and then they can watch it publicly as well. Does anyone have any questions to lift up? Board Member Craig.
Not so much a question, but like, again, a thought along the line there, which is, I think in some ways, this is where understanding the purpose of a foundation might be a better discussion for us to have as a starting point, because I think part of what we are there to do is task what are the things that the district needs? What are the things that we're asking for them to be able to gather resources for? I do think there is a level of autonomy that has to be there for them to be able to say, yeah, we can't grab money for that. Like, no one's gonna give you dollars for that, or something to that effect. Or, hey, we've gathered these things, we can give funds to there. And in part, it needs to be very separate, because if it is viewed as dollars being raised by the district for the district's purposes, those are supposed to go to a different process. And so in a lot of ways, this is a opportunity to do some of the same things that we see at a lot of the schools who have their own like alumni foundations or athletics foundations or those type of things, where they're given something that the school needs and then they're able to go and resource, buy it, donate it to the school in that way. Or resource and put money towards X, Y, and Z as a donation. So I do think it would be helpful for us to establish, are we to, like just establishing what that partnership and that relationship looks like as far as this first year goes. Because I also do think this first year is very different from year 2, 3, and 4, where there should be in some ways a system, a process, it should be kind of a machine set up that does that work. The first year you're kind of growing from the start. And so having some of that clarity as to what's the purpose of a foundation's role and responsibilities, and that also keeps us separate from district funds, because I think that's the other part that I worry a little bit about us talking too much overlap on, is that so we need something, so if we just automatically can go back and say, hey, hand me $100,000 to do X, Y, and Z, that may make it less of a separate 501c3 than if we say, we have these needs at a school, how can you assist, right? That is also why I've believed, and I think we did a very good job of this, of establishing that they're separate from the other vendor services that we have used them for in the past. Because I do think it would get muddled if we had, for instance, an athletic director who was able to go and say, I need new X, Y, and Z. That's what we chose to raise funds for. Some other school didn't have that same connection and couldn't do that same thing, right? And so I think that's maybe also important about establishing the lines in which superintendent and the board and the district can establish what those things are and those needs that need to be met.
Okay. Vice President,
No, I think MAP had her.
whichever one, it doesn't matter.
Well, to expedite, we'll just do this. Thank you. Yes, I have my experience with foundations, unlike Mr. Crossett, is very limited. It's only been in association with the School for the Creative and Performing Arts here, when indeed there was trouble and there was an issue, and that our separation was critical as the state government, and others investigated what was going on regarding that foundation, which had been hallowed and wonderful for so long, and then got into some issues. And the fact that we were separate from it helped the district navigate not only the crisis, but also navigate post-crisis. The other one, of course, is with previous life, Wyoming City Schools Foundation. So those, it's very limited in that way, but that limitation is kind of deep on a couple of things. One, there must be separation, but there is not this complete autonomy, because the only reason this foundation exists is for the benefit of our young people. There's no other reason for it to exist. It has nothing to do with any other purpose whatsoever. So to the level that it is about our children, we have to be involved and obviously have to be part of it. I don't have an issue with the MOU. And if people do, I think they need to be as specific as they can be about the MOU. I also don't want the foundation to be used to fill our budget gaps. That's not how you use a foundation. It's something extraordinarily separate and special, something we can't do, something our taxpayers shouldn't necessarily be expected to do. And so I've appreciated the president's emphasis on keep it within our experience and goals and guardrails and what have you. But the reality is this is not to fill a budget gap. This is to do something extraordinary and special. I think where we have failed a little bit is that as a board, we have not talked enough among ourselves as to what we do think the purpose of the foundation is. We knew that we needed it, we wanted it, we were ready for it, and I appreciate the superintendent getting it created. But I would suggest even something as our retreat in October might not be a bad place to spend a little bit of time to talk about, because I think if anything, my understanding from the other folks that are involved with this foundation, that's what they kind of want, is more of a broad stroke guidance about what's acceptable to us or what's part of our vision. So I think I would suggest we do that. Then the other last thing, they did send out a feedback, and I found it very, very useful. I, of course, not surprisingly, was very opinionated on the whole thing and filled it out pretty specifically. But do look and make sure that all board members have filled that feedback. And I think the superintendent sent it out. She received it from Sally Grimes, and probably you all did, but if you haven't done it yet, I mean, even it's about what's going to be the name and what are some of the projects that are being discussed. It was, but more importantly, did it fit within a vision and mission as they were as they described? And that was educational to me too. So all of us could do that, and I'd welcome a good discussion about what is the purpose and how we see the foundation. But I'm glad you brought this to our attention. But on the MOU, I think it's a pretty good document, all things considered. Thank you.
Board Member Matt?
Yes, so I do appreciate everyone's feedback. I did have concerns regarding just some of the things that were presented specifically around the mission, vision, and values. And so while I recognize that they are an independent entity, I do think that the mission, vision, and values should be spearheaded by the district because this is for our students. Right, and so there has to be that alignment there. And I do see that there's efforts and ways to try to align, but there are moments in, the materials that we receive that I feel that we may be moving full steam ahead where we don't have clarity. And so I would appreciate that opportunity for us, both entities, to have conversation on what the expectation is, what the roles, what the responsibilities entail. And then also, if there's opportunity with there being with them being an independent entity, for an oversight committee on both ends. I don't know if that's something that is possible within the relationship or dynamics of a foundation, but to ensure that there is mutual understanding, to ensure that there's no conflict, because I am concerned about how are we navigating moving forward with them serving as a foundation while, and this is to Board Member Moffitt's point, transitioning out of being a vendor. Right? Is there a specific timeline in which that ends? What does that look like? So I think there's just pertinent conversation that needs to occur before moving forward. Even with the effort to have a fundraiser coming up soon, I think that's great, but I think that presents a challenge because, again, if we're not on one accord, we want to make sure that we're communicating the same message. And so that can present a challenge in that manner. So I do have some questions as we're working to move forward and navigate this space.
So I want to, I think that we're definitely going to take some time at the retreat to discuss it then too. That's in October. But I also, when it was shared that maybe we needed to have some specifics around the MOU, then I want to be able to provide that as well. So I have some questions around section 6, letter D. When we talk about the foundation receiving gifts, I'm confused because we had a donation at one point in time a few months ago come in, and it didn't go through the foundation. But I thought that the MOU was that all gifts and all donations went through the foundation. So there was some concern, there was some confusion around that, and we didn't really address it, but it was still a little confusing to me. And I think that the board needs to provide further direction. I do still have some concerns, and I didn't see them in here readily available, so I'll definitely continue to look. But when we talk about, we need to address the vendor piece, and we need to address the foundation piece, and I think that they are getting conflated for me. So when I look at the treasurer's report, there's an RFP in here that was awarded when they were considered a vendor. Let's look, there's two. One for $224,564, one for $90,000, and it's for an RFP under vendor contracting services. And so I don't know if we adequately describe that in the MOU around that. Because technically speaking, in my mind, when you're a vendor, once they've become a foundation, that may have ceased, or should it have ceased? May have ceased. But that doesn't address that in the MOU. I also have some concerns around if we're going to continue to pay for fine arts programming under a previous contract, what does that look like? We're paying for that as a district. And so are we paying for that for the remainder of the contract? Are we paying for that under the RFP? Are we paying for that until they've raised funds? Those things need to be clarified because the expenses are significant. And I know for one particular instance, we've got Dr. Rudnick's, who has retired, unfortunately, and left us. His position supplied a lot of fine arts programming. And if that's to be absorbed within our staff and our team, that's now a burden on us. What does that look like? So we need to further clarify for the public and for us in the MOU, what are some of the expectations around being a vendor and vendor services and the foundation? Is the purpose of the foundation to reduce CPS costs in some areas? They're raising monies for that. We also need to talk about a sustainability plan for fundraising. Those are things that are not outlined in this MOU that I think are super significant that need to be outlined further. And when we talk about the vision and the mission, those are great, but those things should not be discussed outside of CPS staff. Superintendent Murphy needs to be at that table every time. And I happened to go to a meeting where it was shared some of the project ideas that Superintendent Murphy had in order for the district to reach some of the goals. That should be driving those fundraising efforts. And we should be getting some of that feedback. So I don't need to see another survey. Superintendent Murphy has a clearer understanding of what the expectations are and where the needs are. And so that should be driving the fundraising efforts. But again, we need to define that, I think, and put it in the MOU so that they are very clear on what they're working for. And I also would like to have the foundation, when they're out meeting with outside organizations and entities that our interests are represented by either yourself or Superintendent Murphy. They need to be having meetings with the community and the partners and the funders with CPS staff in collaboration and in partnership. Again, if those things need to be outlined in the MOU, I don't see them there. So when we ask for words specifically in the MOU, are those things needed? Those are some examples of where they're needed. I do have a question around section 6. Administrative expense. So we paid them 1.1 million for the first year. They're to raise 2. Am I understanding it correctly that we'll pay them for 26, 27, 1.2 million? So we, as as the years go up, their expenses go up and we'll pay them more money? Is that right?
Yeah, there's an inflation, it's just an inflation factor figured into the administrative costs that we've agreed to cover. So, I mean, that's what's in the MOU.
Okay, so again,
I've been taking notes, and I kind of want to, I'm glad for all this feedback. This is important feedback, well, I don't want to interrupt.
I'm sorry.
Board Member Matt, let her speak now, because I'm just taking notes.
Board Member Matt?
I just have a quick question. I don't know if there's been discussion around this, but I am curious to know, how do we navigate the space as we're talking about, finances and them raising money? We are a public board and they are a private board. How do we, I guess, navigate that space? So if there's any, records that we would like to receive in terms of the finances, how do we go about having those conversations? And what does that look like?
I think there's some language, Dan could probably help clarify, but I think there's some language in the MOU that they have to do financial reporting to us, and they have to have an audit. So I think those are built into already built into the MOU on that specific question.
So I do recognize that that is in there, and that may have been on like a quarterly basis. I don't know if we needed a financial report before then, what would that process entail, or is there discussion that we need to have for us to be able to pull that information? And then also, what does that look like for us, again, being a public board? How do we present that information? Because I'm sure that there are some things that they may not want to share being a private board, right? So how do we navigate between that space?
I mean, there's reporting that is a part of, it's in section 9 of the agreement. There's also some language in here about keeping track of donations but I mean, this was all subject to lots and lots of discussion that from the first semester of last year and then approved. Glad to answer whatever questions you have about the MOU.
I think that one thing that I'm encouraged by, and I'll try to evoke this and try to help you all get comfortable with this, but I've had lots of discussions with Charlie Frank, President of the board, and I feel like their spirit of collaboration is high. I mean, these are folks that really care about CPS, really care about our students, and they're here to do good for us. And the MOU, I know, I do believe it states that they have to be aligned with our goals and our guardrails and our strategic plan. So that's built into the MOU. So we have some leverage there to make sure that we have the kind of alignment that everybody's looking for what that's worth. I do think, I'm just taking some notes here so that we can have a fuller discussion of this at next meeting after there's a presentation from Charlie, the president of the board, and maybe Sally Grimes will present. But just to recap, we want to be sure we have clarity on the purpose of the foundation, and make sure that that purpose is aligned with our mission, vision, and values. We want to be sure that there is an opportunity in how the money gets spent, that it incorporates equity between the schools, to Board Member Craig's point. There is a process in fundraising that is important for all of us to understand, that what our needs are, and Brandon mentioned this too, may not match up with what donors are interested in giving for. So there is a matchmaking process. I think we all got a survey. I don't know if we've all filled it out, but that's part of helping to try to get us some big wins early in terms of fundraising. Let's see, there does need to remain fiscally independent. And so we can talk a little bit more about, I'll get some more information about what that is and why that's important. Then there's the topic about vendor contracts and whether or not, how that relates to the MOU. I think there's and we've discussed this in board meetings before, but there is no mention of the vendor piece of it in the MOU because it's not part of the MOU. So it's kind of a separate discussion, but we can have more discussions about that. I guess we want to work on clarity about when we get gifts, whether the CPS gets a gift or the foundation gets a gift. We really maybe get some clarity around knowing that we have to honor the donor's wishes, and that can sometimes be restrictive, but that's how that works. And then, let's see, I guess make sure, I mean, those are in my notes. I guess, and I think there was a good point that this cannot cover a budget gap. That was a really good point that Eve made. This has to be money that's not money that we would get from our taxpayers or spent in that way. So am I missing anything that we need to cover more in more depth at our next meeting?
I have one, but I'll go after Vice President Bolden.
Yeah, the thing I would add is I think part of the confusion is that we are not presenting necessarily a united board in this. And I think that adds to the confusion. We have to find consensus that we, all 7 of us, can buy into. And I don't know that it's about the MOU as much as it's about the vision and what it is we are going to expect. I mean, I expect the foundation to provide another stream of revenue. And I expect them to be able to do that stream of revenue, and I expect them to have a clear understanding of what our vision and mission and thought of that revenue would go toward. And I think that's why we need a board discussion and have a stronger sense of consensus. And once we have that, then I think we've got a great, I mean, certainly a great board in the foundation board that we're going to augment now, and they're augmenting. And so, but I think we have a responsibility to come up with a united commitment and a united vision to share with them. And I think once that happens, listen, this district is the most supported, most partnered, older urban district in the United States of America. We wouldn't be here, but that this community has supported us in many, many ways for many, many, many generations. So I think I've heard Kareem mention, we think people are going to give money, but people have to understand for what purpose and with some integrity. And I think that's what we have to come to grips with. But I think that's our job one right now, is to become united in our vision of what this needs to be, and then gangbusters to the foundation board.
Board Member Craig, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say 2 things, and then I will kind of step back out because I want to get us towards our goal of getting out of here at the appointed time that our president wished for us.
I was in charge of public statement.
The 2 things are really, first, so this is an agreement we've already reached. And so I think to a certain extent, what we will, certainly to Vice President Bolton's point, what we maybe need to navigate is how do we live within what we've already agreed to, I think is one thing. And so that means looking at what are the things that we think are the most important things, what are the things the superintendent thinks are the most important things, how do we combine that messaging and communication out to ensure that both entities are operating with the same expectations, same understanding. I think that's very good to do, and I think maybe to your point, President Moffitt, that in some levels has not been reached yet. So that's a fair assessment to do. I don't know that that's done through the MOU or revisiting the MOU, and that's the only thing I will say in that part, because we've kind of already agreed. And so unless we want to unbreak the deal and restart over, which then gets a little bit more trickier and hairier, I think we can find ways to answer some of the concerns and address some of the issues while also living within some of the things we were doing. I do think there is also a space for the long-term future of a foundation that is meant to support, because, like, for instance, we would love to be able to tell alumni foundations not to do certain things and not to send certain communications out. We can't. They do it anyway, right? Like, and some levels of we don't have control. And I think that's the other part of this that I think we as a board have to also get a little bit of that comfort with, is that at the end of the day, they are a separate entity. There is a benefit to that. which means that certain things we don't have to worry about. We don't have to report. We don't have to do certain parts of it. They are responsible for it. When they don't do it, we tell them, we don't need you anymore, and we move on. But they are a separate thing, and I think that's the other part to the conversation that we might have in October, is about, yes, they're here, they're ready to support. Their values should align to the values that the district has, because that's what they're communicating out to folks. They're communicating, they're raising funds to support efforts for things in the district that otherwise would not get done, right? So things that otherwise there is no dollars for, otherwise we can't spend money for, those type of things. And that's maybe another aspect of what we would have that conversation in October about, is are those things that we can't do because we're not allowed to do, or we're not able to get funds for, or that's just something not in the budget that then can be something the foundation does, as opposed to, we wanted another book, so we got this other, or we wanted the better book instead of this book, kind of deal. But I think all of that is stuff we can have the conversation around. I don't know that it always benefits us to stay within the MOU as the basis for that conversation, though. And that was my only add-on thought to that, is that since we've already made the agreement, I think one aspect of it is start to ask, what are those deliverables? What are those things that we're going to be expecting to see? When can we see it? I think Board Member Matt brings up a great point of there are times where we may have situations where we have concerns that warrant us to do more review of what is being done in our name or done with our name. There may be a valid reason to go and say, hey, we're understanding that you're doing certain things that are using the CPS name to get resources, and it may not align to the goals that we've agreed to or the things that we've agreed to as part of the agreement. And I think there are ways to enforce that is separate from us just want to know what you're doing with money, right? Those are the things I think we can talk through of how that is aligned in the MOU and how that is operating. But to the other part to this, which is the second part I'll be really quick on, is I do think there's some things that we have to figure out as vendors of the district. What are the expectations we're going to hold for every vendor who's a vendor of the district? And I say that because I do think we have a long-term problem with when it only really becomes an issue when we don't see the results, or we start to see a problem, right? So as long as there's nothing bad happens, we have this tendency to say, oh, well, that it worked out, right? And I think we've said this with transportation in the past. We've done this with other things in the past, where we said, because it became a problem, now we go and look at it. And I think that's something that we have embarked on a little bit with the KPIs, with other things like that. But we could do even more version of that, of is this vendor truly bringing a benefit to the district that is a long-term, short-term, midterm kind of conversation, which is something I think the Treasurer's reformed Treasurer's report starts to get us towards, where we look at what are the obligations the district's under, short-term, midterm, long-term. But we can do more of that. I just think those are maybe two separate conversations, but maybe aligned on this specific situation. And so I just hope we can kind of keep discussing where we stand on it, so we get into accordance, and that way it makes it easier for us to have a conversation with them.
Mr. Hoying.
Yeah, just to give a more coherent answer to Board Member Mapp's question, which I was trying to scramble through the agreement. There's three sections in terms of what we can expect from them in terms of reporting. One is these quarterly reports. They're kind of big picture, though, I think is the point. Second is they're required to do a budget for us every year. So in terms of how they're spending the money, the administrative expense, that's in 6C. They have to do a budget to show us how they're going to spend that money. And finally, with respect to funds or gifts that have been donated to the foundation and how those dollars are being spent, there's to be spent for the benefit of CPS, by the executive director or with the approval of the executive director in collaboration with the CPS superintendent, and then the executive director shall be responsible for complete and accurate record keeping regarding all foundation receipts and expenditures, and such records shall at all times be available for review by CPS superintendent and his or her designee at all times. So that's 7B of the agreement. Sorry for my previous incoherent answer.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we definitely have begun the conversation. You do have some work to do. I would like to add to your list that we need to clarify the role as a vendor. I think you mentioned it, but I'm specific with resource coordination, like I want the specifics around resource coordination, fine arts programming, and Stargell Stadium administration, because they have some administrative efforts with regard to Stargell. Whatever it is that the current ABC is under, we need to kind of revisit those and look at those things to further clarify. I brought it to the MOU, and I almost think that it should kind of stay there, or we can create an addendum to it, because I think my colleagues, I join my colleagues in wanting the foundation, absolutely wanting the foundation. I foresee that they will have no problem in collecting money on behalf of the district, and I think that I'd love to help them get there. But I do think that we need to, having been with the foundation preliminarily right now for the past few months, there's the need to clarify some things so that our best interests, which are funded by taxpayer dollars, are represented very clearly with no limitations. And the expectation is that our representatives will be at the table, will be engaging with the community for our best interest with no restrictions there. And that needs to have been clarified, unfortunately. So we'll put this back on the agenda for next week, for next meeting, and we'll expect maybe an update around naming and branding. But then also, are we, just a question right now, because it's in the treasurer's report, are we funding the request for proposals that are here for approximately $320,000 that are, because I thought the foundation's role was to raise the money, but there's two RFP requests in the treasurer's report for funding, and we pulled them the last time. And so we pulled them the last time to get a little bit more clarification, and I don't know if we really got that yet.
So I'll speak a little bit then, but I think the superintendent might want to speak. I'll give you an example of a specific example of, I just happen to know the details of it, which would be the arts contract. So I believe that the arts contract is a 3-year contract, and so it doesn't go out for RFP each year. It's a 3-year deal. I believe that the money that was in that contract for this coming fiscal year, or school year, was reduced, just like so many other budgets that we had to cut. I don't know the details of the reduction, but so that is a continuing contract that's with ABC, or now the Cincinnati Public School Foundation, and it's a service contract, right? We budgeted for it. It's in the budget. The program has been approved in our budget, and that contract is in a continuation kind of contract, and it's less money than we spent last year. So it's, at some point that contract will come up for RFP, and then that'll be a whole new ballgame with that. But right now, it's a contract. And so that's an example of.
ABC is a vendor.
Right. And so they're under contract, and they're going to live with reduced dollars. The program will be different than it has been in the past, reduced dollars, different personnel, but it is in the budget, and we've approved it.
So again, this is an area that I think we need to just clarify. Again, if you could bring that back at the next meeting, ABC as a vendor is different than, because it's not ABC, it's the foundation. So we need to clarify if we are funding the foundation to do specific vendor contract services, or should those things be, since ABC, when they were awarded, was different than they are now, should they be sent out for RFP? So those are the things that we need to clarify. Any other questions? Board Member Matt.
So are you recommending, so the example that you just provided, that's in the treasurer's report presently, today, correct?
It is in there today.
Okay. Are you recommending that it was removed from the treasurer's report, or to continue to be tabled?
I just asked for clarification because it says that increase the number of weekly student arts enrichment activities per week by January 7th. So is that for the full year, this particular contracted amount? And both of those RFPs end in, I'm assuming that they kind of end in January. I just needed a little bit of further clarification
Part of this is the International Jazz Festival work, which doesn't come till the latter part of the school year, but this is for the full amount that was requested and included in the budget, to Mr. Cross's point a little bit earlier. So this does cover that work for the school year.
So our RFPs, we're paying for fine arts programming separately from, again, it's a little
Yes.
confusing to me.
Yes, all this is all new to all of us, so yes, and lots to work through, no question. And I do remember when we were having the MOU conversations, we did keep separate the other pieces, resource coordination, for example. The piece as a vendor with a contract, the only piece I believe we discussed was the athletic director piece at that time.
Okay. So again, I'm happy to get a little bit more further clarification. I would still like that, but those are things that we need to work on, absolutely. Last comment?
Yeah, as I think Mr. Craig mentioned, then this first year is different than the following years. We need to have them be in this transition, the vendor for a while they have to then create the stream of revenue. Until they create that stream of revenue, we're going to be paying for it as we have been, whether that's our athletic programs and the boys and girls are on the field and on the court now. So this transition will have time to get some more clarification without necessarily holding up, I think, how we're going to spend tonight and whatever. But this is my dream, where that stream of revenue replaces what the taxpayers have been doing. And very frankly, indeed, ABC has been doing that for almost 20 years. So this is just that transition. But I think the more clarity we get, the better. And the more conversation we have, the better.
And I definitely don't
All
want
want to
to,
get to the same place.
I don't want to take anything away from our kids if we've been doing that, for sure. So we're going to continue this discussion and looking forward to the next one. I would also like to say that we've vetted 2 members to represent CPS on the ABC Foundation board, Mrs. Leslie Mooney, and Mr. Christopher Mattress. So I do have a resolution appointing Leslie Mooney and Christopher Mattress to serve as community representatives and voting members of the Board of Directors of the Cincinnati Public School Foundation. I need a first and a second.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion?
We have 2 great candidates.
These are 2 awesome candidates. And so we had some interviews, we've gotten a chance to know them better. I did meet with Mr. Mattress. I knew Leslie Mooney before, and they are super excited. They both said, is it official? Is it official? So once we vote, it will be official. Treasurer Wagner.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Mr. Crossett?
Yes.
Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
Ms. Mapp?
Yes.
Vice President Bolton?
Yes.
President Moffett?
Yes. Treasurer Wagner, please begin the update regarding the status of federal funds for fiscal year '26 and the Ohio legislators' actions regarding school funding and districts' capacity to tax.
So I'm going to pass the baton to Mr. Dustin,
Uh-oh.
who's been valiantly working on this with Dan and our grants team to stay on top of it. So, Mike?
Thank you, Treasurer Wagner. If you go to the next slide, Rob. So let's start actually with the state budget. If you remember last time we were here, I think our presentation was a congratulations to Governor DeWine for vetoing 67 items out of the budget. The House did want to override 3 of those line items. They were successfully able to override 1 of them, which is the one that prohibits fixed sum levies. We'll talk about that in a minute. The other 2 they had to table. The other thing that has to happen for the override to take effect is that the Senate has to concur. They have not scheduled a vote yet, so It's out there. The expectation is that the Senate will vote along with the House when they come back into session. The kind of other scary thing about overrides is the House, and any override has to start in the House because that's where the budget started, so. But they can actually vote on overriding any veto up until December 31st, 2026. So. If you go to the next slide, Rob, you can see here, I'm not going to read it for you, the changes to the law. So really what it's doing is it's getting rid of fixed sum levies, substitute levies, renewals and increases. So it's reducing our ability to go out and ask for new tax dollars. If you go to the next slide, the real impact for us, like I said, it takes a couple things out of our toolkit. So we can't do fixed sum levies, we can't do substitute levies. So really looking at fixed rate levies and school district income tax going forward. So impact on this November, as you know, we're going to have the $48 million levy on the ballot in November. We get one chance to pass it. So if it doesn't pass this November, by the time the next election comes up, we'll have to do something different. Likewise, we'll have to make decisions in the future on two other fixed sum levies that we have that are in November 29 and November 32. So one thing that's interesting about fixed sum levies, and Treasurer Wagner and I were looking at the data today, someone sent over the data, we are actually the largest by dollar amount school district in the state for fixed sum levies by about 3 times. We bring in about 3 times as much as the next highest. And by millage, I think we're 5th or 6th. So we are one of the biggest users of this taxing tool. The other long-term changes, by getting rid of fixed sum levies, you're going to start to do some of the 20 mil floor stuff. Because fixed sum levies aren't part of the 20 mil floor, but fixed rates levies are. So as these conversions happen, we'll start to see some impacts to our 20 mil floor. I mean, this will be years down the road, but it's something to note. All right, Rob, next slide. There's also, the governor appointed a property tax reform working group. So they have a deadline of September 30th to come up with some property tax reform ideas. You can see the members there, a couple of folks who are well known to this board in this district. So hopefully they'll come up with some great recommendations for us. Yeah, there were no school treasurers in there, which is interesting, but hopefully other folks can represent us well. So next slide, Rob. We'll go on to the federal grant stuff. So if you keep going, just a reminder to everyone, we get about $47 million a year in new federal grants to spend. And generally those are available on July 1st, and then we have till September 30th of the next year to spend them. Keep going. Oh. So, and you know, as we discussed with the lawsuit, on June 30th, you know, the U.S. Department of Education came out and said, you know, that they were going to do some additional review and weren't allocating titles 2, 3, and 4 funds to the state. Just keep going, Rob. So this is kind of, you know, review from our last meeting. That was about $5.2 million. That would have been in jeopardy. And if you go to the next slide, here's the new information. So since our last board meeting, ODEW released the state portion of adult ed money. So that helped us out a bit. That was about $350,000. Bless you. On the 16th, ODU, Ohio Department of Education Workforce, extended the grant period by 3 months. So that actually allowed us to keep kind of operations going. That was a nice thing. On July 18th, the Title 4B, which is the 21st Century Grants, released to the state. Is not something that CPS directly benefits from, but a lot of our partners do. So it definitely helps our kids. On July 21st, we filed the lawsuit against the U.S. Department of Education. And on July 25th, the U.S. Department of Education announced the review had been completed and funds would be released to the state. So that was good. And then the breaking news, so there's always late breaking news, right? So the breaking news was that we heard from the state on Friday that as of July 30th, the state had received their allocations for these funds. So now we're just waiting for the state to take the statewide allocations, divide those amongst the districts, and give us our numbers. Other thing that is nice is the state is going to take what's called the substantially approved date, which is our official first date to start spending, and they're going to move it back to July 1st. So all of those are very good pieces of news for us. So, a couple other, oh, go. Couple other things here, just another slide, just to kind of show you what the grant extension does. It just gives us an extra 3 months to spend the money, our carryover, and then I think the final slide in here. Keep going one more. Final slide in here is just talking about going into the future. So we still anticipate in the next fiscal year, elimination of Title III, some sort of combination and block grant of Title IV. And I think it's also important to point out, as I think we have, that strategically, we've been trying to reduce grant spending carryover year over year, to avoid the sweeps, the nasty word of sweeps. So, as you spend your carryover, you just have to remember you don't have it for future years.
Thanks so much. Almost Treasurer Guston. Can you go back just a couple slides for a second to this one? Yes. You said the good news is that the Trump-Vance administration has decided to follow the law, and they're going to send the money that the law says they have to send to Columbus, and that's good. And that we're now waiting for the state to send the allocations out to the districts. Am I right that those are by formula? Like, this is not an opportunity for the state to mess with this and send us a different amount of money? Like, this is in the federal law that was passed. It's going to be a fixed amount based on how that law is written?
This is very much a formulaic thing, yes.
Great, so like these will be the numbers. It's not, we're not waiting, or plus or minus a negligible amount.
Yeah, we always budget right around 95% of prior year. That's always worked well for us. It does fluctuate based on your number of students versus the state's number of students and those sort of things.
But 95% is great, yeah. Thank you so much, appreciate it.
I'm sorry. Board Member Craig.
The president forgot our duties here. Just relax.
I was zoning.
So two things. One, and I think you hit it pretty right on the head for me with regards to the potential implications of moving away from fixed sum levies. And I think this is something that we as a board have to really be thinking about, because it may result in us also needing to readdress how we communicate and how we think about our levies in the future as we transition. Because if we are going to the same amount will get you actually less, right? As we kind of move from a fixed sum into a fixed rate, right? So like in theory, you will put the same amount of money on the ticket, right? It looks the same other than changing the name of it, but it in fact affects us so that we would get potentially less revenue from those dollars.
Yeah, I mean, part of the issue is we are at the 20 mil floor. And so depending on how that changes, that's another complete thing we have to deal with. But you may have to ask for more millage to get above the floor, because other older levies will adjust down.
And I think this is something that we will have to find a great way to communicate to the public, because what they're going to hear is you're asking for more money when in fact you're actually getting the same amount, if not in some cases less, right? So that's something for us as a board to be thinking about, and how we communicate and talk, and certainly still advocating with with folks in the Senate to ensure that maybe there's a possibility they don't pass it. But the other part to that is they could wait to pass it to much later, and that potentially puts you in a position where it would still go back to it would, depending on when they would pass a veto, could go back in a period of time. So like if we made decisions for next year, in that process, we could be in the middle of doing something next year, and that would be affected by something that could get overturned at any point during that process, right? So like, for instance, if we said we wanted to go and grab new money next year, and in the midst of that, they did the veto then, or overturned the veto then, that again could have an implication on what that looks like. And I think this is just something, it's a small, what otherwise looks like a small change can have such a dramatic effect on how a district brings in revenue. The other thing that I think is worth noting is the idea, or at least the proposal that's being pushed out right now in the federal government with regards to Title II and Title IV, and this idea of block granting, which we all know means cutting, because invariably you're gonna give less money and then ask people to fight over it in some type of, Hunger Games style battle for resources that are absolutely needed. The logic, though, that's being offered for getting rid of Title III is that it can be incorporated into Title I. And I think this is a really fallacy of arguments, this idea that you can still support students because we're going to give you Title I dollars still, right? So you just move those things into Title I. And again, we don't get a huge amount, but maybe speak just really briefly on what the difference is that we use those resources for that makes it not as simple as, we'll just put it under Title I and you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I will tell you, and luckily we had to do it, but Nan Haygood, who's our manager of state and federal grants, Lisa Bryant, who's our budget and accounting manager, and I, we spent the better part of a week working through contingency plans. And one of the parts of that was, if these funds go away, how much of those things can be moved to Title I? And it's not 100% move for sure. Yes, there are some overlap between the funds, but there are some things that certainly aren't. One of the biggest, not to get too far in the weeds, but one of the biggest challenges of Title I is it is a school-based allocation. So once we get our district allocation from the state, we have some very specific ways we have to allocate that for schools. And it can only be used at Title I schools. So right there, that takes 5 or 6 schools off the list that can't access those funds at all. And then you have to look at the number of kids, the percentage of kids that are economically disadvantaged, and it would create some really, really weird numbers. You would find schools that have huge amounts of money they can't spend, and then schools that still don't have enough just because the population's not there. The overall population is not there, even though the population served by Title III would be. So these grants aren't mix and match. They're all things that help. And then the final thing that you have to say is, moving it to Title I just means you're moving something else out of Title I. So saying yes to these things in Title I means you're saying no to some other program that could be equally or more beneficial to the students we need to serve.
Yeah, and then the last thing I will say, and I will echo some comments I overheard being made here. There's only one treasurer even listed on the groups of folks who are going to be working on this tax reform group.
She's a county treasurer.
And so I just think it's worth noting that, again, there's some folks who we know who've been supporters, who've been advocates for things here, but these things are monetary policy. This is really talking about how do these little changes here and there change how much people pay for taxes, how we collect taxes, the purpose of how we use taxes. And we might want to have folks who actually spend time all day long working in finance, who might actually be able to understand these dollars and have dealt with these dollars on a regular basis, being a part of committees like this more so than just political figures. But again, I will take the folks we have, and hopefully they'll come up with something that will not gut how we fund public education. But it's just worth noting that we have very little of folks. We have an abundance of folks who are political figures, more so than we have folks who do the day-to-day work with the finances that are the result of these taxes. And so it would be great if we had it reversed. That's all I'm saying.
So I will say to that, Hamilton County Commissioner Denise Driehaus is listed here, and she's coming to our legislative lunch on the 18th. So board members, we can bombard her then about the benefits and the disadvantages to CPS. But we're also trying to get her to come to these joint meetings too. We were trying before she was there. But to your point, how do you make decisions about education without educators at the table? So it does not surprise me that they're making financial decisions about districts without financial people at the table. Vice President Bolton?
I do think it was a good political stroke on the part of the governor to create this committee, because I think it dampened the fires in the legislature for a little bit anyway, give everybody some time. I have confidence in the folks that are coming out of our community, the commissioner, and certainly Mr. Seitz, who's a former board member of Cincinnati Public Schools and also as a graduate of Cincinnati Public Schools. I think he is a West High boy, if I recall. So there's some issue there, I think, to be excited about. We have to pass the $48 million one. We all know, we've been telling people, been telling the public, it's obvious that we need more money as early as next year, that we will probably be going back. I mean, that's not going to be a surprise. And we've talked a lot about it being about facilities, and the reality is a lot of it's going to have to be about operations. What kind of, if we don't have the emergency type or whatever, what are the options that would be open to us in '26? As I look at two people, it looks like I'm playing a tennis game here, or watching a tennis game. What kind of tax requests would we be able to make in '26?
I mean, based on the law, there's two choices. We can
Yeah.
either do a fixed rate levy for a fixed rate levy, and then we have to decide the millage, or we can look at a school district income tax. We could also do a permanent improvement levy just for the facilities part of it, which that's a fixed rate as well.
So if you repeat those three for my benefit.
Sure. So we could do a fixed rate levy for operations and actually permanent improvements. You could do both. You could do a permanent improvement levy, or you could do a school district income tax.
Thank you. That helps. Appreciate it.
Any other questions, board members? Board Member Matt?
Board Member Bolton pretty much asked my question. But also, I guess to that point, so what other alternative strategies outside of the levies would we be able to do to generate revenue for the district? So since we have those restrictions, and we only have those particular type of levies, are there other alternatives in addition to what those options may be that we would possibly be able to generate revenue?
I mean, your levies are going to be your biggest chunk of revenue. Obviously, state funding is kind of formulaic and set, so obviously increasing our enrollment helps our state revenue, making sure we're coding things. The other things we can do are like you can make some money on building rentals, you can make some money on things like that, but there aren't significant, revenue streams outside of the tax levies.
And I'm sure that's by design as well. Any other comments or questions? That's the nicest thing I could say. Board Member Craig.
I think maybe a thought process also into the point that Board Member Matt was kind of asking questions about is there are very limited ways in which districts are funded for any substantial portion of their budgets. And so these changes at the state level are not just hitting us, they're also hitting a lot of the other districts in ways that may not necessarily be the understood responses. And so I think this is one of the reasons why us being one of the larger districts, we have to figure out ways to lead those conversations, because I know when we were talking about this before, suburban districts were getting hit, rural districts are getting hit in ways that they had not necessarily been hit by past changes, right? Like in the ways some folks think about how they pay for certain things in their district, they're much more on the cusp of, like one failed levy, like we see in some of the districts around us, means, you got no buses, right? Like one failed levy means a building closes and all the teachers are removed from that. Whereas we have a little bit of more flexibility to then strive again, not much based on the way we're now looking at with some of these different things. So I just think it really does push people to the edge in public funding of education. And that means when those students no longer go to public school, there ain't gonna be a bunch of charter schools and private schools accepting those students. They're gonna get shipped out of their district. They're gonna get moved further away. That's the real problem with some of this stuff, is that the unintended consequences are gonna hit places like the rural districts in a larger way. And I would love for us to be having more of that push to that argument for those areas as well, to support the same stuff that we're arguing for in the public school districts. Because I do think, to your point, if you can only use two or three ways to raise revenue, your community eventually at some point is going to say, enough is enough. And so I think it goes to why we play such an important role in the larger conversation, especially with some of our rural and suburban partners.
Thank you. Superintendent Murphy, please update the board about school opening challenges, strategies and enrollment, staffing, transportation, and security.
Yes, ma'am. So, Rob, on the school opening deck, if we can flip to page 9, I'll start with enrollment, and then we'll also have Chief Burkhart come to talk about transportation and Ms. Indalacio to talk about staffing, and then we have a piece from the deputy on our security. Where we are with enrollment, we feel like we're in a really good place. Throughout the summer, we have had some pop-ups where we've been able to talk about Cincinnati Public Schools with the community, and it has resulted in some enrollments. You know that we have transitioned to using our centralized enrollment, and so the front of the building has been very busy the last several days, but they are fully staffed in that office. And so while they are doing a little bit of training with the new staff, we have also been able to take advantage of educating our families around the corridor model, for example, during this transition to centralized enrollment. And so on the next slide, you'll see where we are in terms of enrollment, and this was probably as of last Wednesday. Jeremy Gallahue did inform me there is an increase of about 350 just since last Wednesday. We feel really good about where we are, grades 1 through 12. As you can see, our enrollment is slightly higher than the projection in all of those grade levels. But where we are a little lower is preschool and kindergarten, which I understand is pretty typical at this time of year. We'll continue with the presentation with Ms. Indalacio giving an update about staffing.
Good evening. So in terms of staffing, as you are well aware, we had a RIF this summer, and we had some surplusing related to the budget shortfall. And so what we did was do a lot of work that was very much tied to personalized one-on-one communications with individual staff members who were affected. We worked right alongside with CFT with all of that work, so in no case, and I want to really thank CFT for their work in collaborating with us in that difficult work, but we got it done. Most all of our RIF teachers have been offered now positions in their licensure area. So the first thing that we did is we RIFed them, then we offered them jobs in the reverse order, et cetera. We met with CFT and then offered them a position outside of the area. But since then, we've had a number of openings that have allowed us to get them back into their licensure area. So we're very excited about that, to be starting the year with fewer subs and folks that are not licensed in their areas. We continue to have another challenge. We continue to have the shortage of traditionally hard to staff positions, and we this year have some specialty positions that we're short in. So if you know someone interested in teaching Korean or Arabic, we have position openings, and those are a little bit tougher to fill, of course. We have when I say traditionally hard to staff, we are talking about things like mathematics, high school science, intervention specialists, in those areas. And so we continue to recruit. We're looking at our pipeline programs carefully. So we are very proud to say that we had 13 new teachers graduate from UC's SHINE program with a master's degree in special education. And we were able to, and there are employees that were pairs that went through the pipeline, and we've hired all of them back. So that's even fewer people that we need to hire externally or to use subs for, because now we have our own people that are licensed teachers. So really nice to see those pipelines working. We've had some clerical staffing shortages. We of course have to follow the Civil Service Commission rules, offering tests first. We're working very closely with CFOP. They've been wonderful. Ms. Fanny has been great in working with us and thinking about and being creative about how to get positions to schools first, so that they really will be able to start school feeling fully staffed. In the event that they're not, we have clerical resource team that can train any new employees, and we have a clerical sub team that would be deployed to those schools where there are vacancies. And then, as we've talked about earlier in the summer, there are paraprofessional shortages on par with what we've seen in the past. And as we stated, we prioritized filling those compliance paraprofessionals first. So those that are in units, that are serving one-on-ones, that are ESL, those kinds of positions we prioritized. And so not until those positions are filled are we having folks fill any new vacancies in the overloads. So that plan seems to be working out, albeit we are still struggling to get enough paraprofessionals, as we usually are. And so if anyone, again, we're still happy to take applications and leads for anyone who is interested in parapros. Our welcome back fair on Saturday yielded a few people to add to our parapro ranks, so that was exciting for us as well. The next slide kind of shows where we are in terms of staffing data. Again, this is last week's data, so things change very quickly. I know we've done a ton of hiring today. And so our K-3 teachers were down one vacancy. We really probably have filled that by now because we've reached out to the RIF teachers and then we've gotten some new folks in. And you can see the rest of the day there that they're not surprising numbers. They are a little lower than we've seen in the past, but then we would expect that because we also lowered the number of teachers we had overall a little bit. And we are going to be paying very close attention to those 7th and 8th grade buildings because those have some vacancies in them. And we want to make sure that there are new junior highs that we've been focusing on hiring for middle schools and junior highs have a good shot of being very successful in this exciting endeavor. So we're very excited about all of that. And then lastly, you can see that data related to parapros in that we still have quite a few vacancies in that area that we continue to work on and hire every day. There is a link there to all schools data, so if you want to drill down by school, that is available for you. Thank you.
Good evening, Board. I'll be talking to you about security. We are in a better place than we've been in a while. Always, we want to make sure that all of our schools are safe, that we've trained all of our security, and that they're all placed in the appropriate place. We make sure that they've been trained, as you can see up here, with all of the training that we provide to them so that we can ensure that they are prepared and ready to deal with our young people. So here's our security by the numbers. See, high school, we have 99. I won't read the chart to you, but we have about 15 vacancies. We are interviewing daily and really trying to push those people through to make sure they get what they need. Normally, our problem is when we do our background checks, if they don't come back quickly, then we know there's a problem and we need to probably move on to the next person. But as you can tell, normally we try to make sure that we look at the capacity of the building. We look at how many doors, how many entrances they have. We look at the discipline in that building. We also look at if they have a healthcare center there where there are people that are coming outside of the community into the building. That's why you see some schools have more than the others, because we want to ensure that can be done. You also have the positions by school and a link up there if you would like to see that. But we are working very hard to ensure that we have enough security so that our students feel safe when they come into a building. We know that is a big piece of the work, is feeling safe.
Good evening, everybody's favorite subject, transportation. Happy to talk a little bit about the challenges going into this year. We've had 8 additional non-public and charter schools added to our roster in late June. And that goes with House Bill 110. House Bill 110 says that when a non-charter or public school gives us information for the start of school year, we are required to make every effort to transport those students on the first day of school. So also with House Bill 110, it also says that we have the window of dropping them off no more than a half hour before the start of the school day, and we have to pick them up no longer than 30 minutes after the school day is over. So as we had our transportation plan already set and in place, we've added those 8 schools to our docket, and we have all the students, as of right now, all the students in our enrollment are all routed as of August 1st. And that has not happened in quite a long time. So kudos to the transportation team for making that happen. And then finally, the other challenge is the transportation centers. We have a meeting with all the partners, meaning the city of Cincinnati, Metro, CPS, and Iris Rowley and her team. We're having a meeting next Wednesday in relation to how do we continuously make the transit centers safe and feel safe. Some of our strategies throughout this entire plan was working with communications to develop a outward and inward-facing communications plan. Obviously, a lot of collaboration with Metro, having a lot of collaboration with those middle school and those 7th and 8th grade schools that will be moving to Metro, and making sure that all those questions are answered, making sure that we are also looping in customer care, JFS, Project Connect, and communications and marketing through all of those different avenues to make sure that everyone knows what the plan is and what they can expect when school starts on the 20th. We've had regular meetings with the yellow bus vendors, as well as our white fleet, and the white fleet are those vans and short buses that are specialty transportation for all of our schools. So we've had those meetings as well as making sure that we have a presence at all the pop-up enrollment sites that we've had over the summer. And then obviously having the transportation at the middle school principal meetings and any other middle school or junior high school meetings that happen. We want to make sure that we have a presence there, not only for us, but with Metro, so that parents can get their questions answered.
Just a slight note on the security and transportation. We will have a plan to have security at the transit centers at least through August, start in the end of September.
Great. I have a question. Can you go back one slide, Rob? With regard to, when did the transportation director present at the middle school principal meetings, or has that happened, or is that going to happen?
Yes, that has already happened. When there were the middle school principal meetings that happened, I don't know, June, thank you. And they got together, we listened to some of the concerns, made sure that we were making sure that those folks on the front lines had the information about what middle schools would look like and what that transportation partnership would look like.
Is there a plan to continue that for August? Because things change from month to month, so the presentation in June looks different after students can actually access the Metro information with the regular timing of the routes, et cetera.
Yeah, so we have a partnership with Metro that at every open house that we are having across the district, regardless of the grade level, obviously 7 through 12, that we have a presence from both CPS and Metro at each one of those to be able to answer questions. We also are developing frequently asked questions. We have TikTok videos. We have an extensive communication plan to make sure that there's multiple avenues where folks can get their questions answered.
That would be great, and I'm looking forward to getting that information as well. Another question, we've received an exorbitant amount of contact as a board, and I've seen them reply all to the board members around Hyde Park, and I know that you made some adjustments about a Hyde Park stop to the rec center, I guess the rec center at Hyde Park. Can you talk about that? Because I've been very diligent in letting parents know we don't hire the rec center staff because they've complained about the limited number of spots. But they also have complained about the availability of a stop being added, and I think you addressed that, and I wanted to see if you would talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we look at routes every year, obviously, and our number of students going to different locations that are not home to school, for example, ebbs and flows. So I believe that was a stop in previous years. I don't know what the history has been for that specific stop, but it was taken off, I'm assuming, for non-ridership. So the request was made, we looked at it, it was already a stop, and so we added it back in. We will continuously look and see if there are a number of students who are continuously riding. If that drops off, we might have to look at that again. But obviously, we want to make sure that at every step along the way that we're providing the service through a deviated stop or adding or subtracting a stop as needed. And we've done that for not only Hyde Park, but there's been a couple of others that we've looked at very diligently. The answer isn't always yes. It depends on if we have a route going, past that location or to that location, as well as how many students are actually riding it.
And my last question is around an additional significant increase in communication around siblings and Spencer. And I asked the superintendent to kind of expand on this a little bit. So we've got a scenario where your sibling is in the 3rd or 4th grade, but their other sibling is 7th and 8th grade. So what remedy or what do we tell the parents with that scenario where one is scheduled to ride the Metro, the other is scheduled to ride the Yellow?
Yeah, so when the request was made to look at siblings riding Yellow Bus with their sibling counterpart, we did a data search across, all of those schools that would be affected. We found there were over 600, and I don't know what the exact number was, somewhere between 600 and 700 students that have siblings that ride. If we were to add those students back on the Yellow Bus, most of the savings that we thought that we would get by moving 7th and 8th graders to Yellow Bus would be non-existent. So we would be going back and adding that cost back into our budget.
Any other questions? Vice President Bolton?
Yeah, do we know how many 7th and 8th graders and what percentage of our 7th and 8th graders have opted to go Metro, therefore need the card? Meaning, how many of our 7th and 8th graders are going to go Metro?
Right now,
You've scheduled all of them, I got that.
okay.
Do we have any indication as to how many actually, what percentage it really will be?
No, what we'll do is we will print cards for all of them.
Right.
They will be handed out during the orientation and/or the first day of school if they're not at orientation. During that first 2 weeks, we'll then know, and we'll be able to get clicks every single day from Metro to tell us what the ridership is going to be.
So we'll know pretty early in the school year how many parents have made other arrangements?
Correct.
Or found other ways to, okay. And then my other question, just on a kind of on a percentage, when you talk in terms of the 9 through 12s, or better yet, 9 through 11, because who knows by the 12th grade how they're getting there. But what's usually the percentage that opt for Metro? Do we have any idea? In the upper grades, 9 through 12?
How many opt through Metro versus driving themselves or some other?
Whatever other method, yeah.
Yeah, I have the raw numbers. I'd have to do those percentages.
Okay,
I can get that for you.
if you could look at that, some sort of predictability. There is some media interest in continuing this ongoing transportation question and that about confusion and about 7th and 8th grade families and what have you.
Okay.
It'd be good for us to have as many numbers as possible for that particular cohort. And if they're in 6th grade, they're on Yellow Bus.
Correct.
And anything below that?
Yes.
Because now there's some confusion about that as well. No.
6th grade and below are on Yellow Bus, unless they have an IEP and some other transportation, which they would be on White Fleet or some other mode of transportation that we have.
And can we ask some about, not transportation, but about the paras? On the paras, I know that when we did the budget before, this budget, there was there's some issue about reorganizing paras. We were finding a more efficient way to do that, or was it something that CFT had suggested, or, I'm hitting you cold on that one.
We were working on, I think Julia mentioned it too. Oh, hi, Julia. But we did talk about prioritizing the compliance
Yes.
parapros.
Exactly right. So I think what you're referring to is we had spoken about the different roles that paras play in the school, in that we worked on thinking about, if you have paras, if they have a job with us, that's great, we love them, we want them to keep their jobs. But if there was a vacancy, how do you prioritize the newest paras that are coming in into the jobs that we most need to fill, that are compliance-based, right? That are fulfilling an IEP need, for instance. And so that's the reshuffling that we talked about. It wasn't really reshuffling. We're not moving anybody. We didn't force anybody into a different job. We posted positions that are open, as we always do. But then when it came to new positions or new vacancies, we talked to principals about the importance that we're only going to post compliance vacancies first to get folks into those positions that we have to have because of statute or regulations.
Because I think we were trying to realize, not just improved service, but realize some savings as well, and to cope with the fact that we were going to have vacancies. And so you think it was the prioritization piece that was?
So part of it is that, and Mike and Jen could certainly address that, negative vacancies piece is that we consider a position not filled, obviously vacant. The treasurer's office looks at that, and I don't want to speak for you, but as a negative vacancy or a negative contingency that they budget against. And what we've seen is, as we've tried to get the budget tighter and tighter so that we don't have a ton of vacancies, that negative contingency decreased. What we were trying to do with paras really is, if we were going to have vacancies, let's not have them in the areas where we're going to have to call a third-party vendor to come in and fill those. Because if you have an overload para, if I'm a sixth grade teacher and I've got 32 kids in my room and I have an overload para and the overload para doesn't show up, we don't have subs and we don't call an agency for that. If I am a one-on-one and this kiddo needs to have their para there and the para doesn't show up, then we have to call an agency and call someone in. And so for us, the need to meet those IEP goals and demands is critical for the well-being of that child and for their educational experience. And so it was important for us to prioritize that work. It's all important, don't get me wrong, it's all important, but we are not calling agencies to fill overload paras as we are with DSS.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
One for the deputy, if I could, and you don't need to come back down, but the staffing seems good, and do we have all the equipment and the technology and the cameras and I don't know, all the stuff, the paraphernalia that goes with providing security at each of these buildings?
Everything's been ordered, and as it's coming in, it's being placed in the building. We'll make sure we have all of the, what are they walking through, the safety, the
Yeah.
wands. I mean, all the things needed to make sure that they're safe at the junior high school. We'll have all that, and any added things that we have ordered those things.
Great, and we have the kind of the communication system set up. I know that it's actually pretty cool. We're about the radios and whatever else to communicate throughout the building, even if you're not even in the building.
They definitely love that feature.
Okay.
They still have that feature, and if we need to do walkie-talkies, those things were ordered. The resource team has went out and checked everything to see whatever we needed. But I will have an update for Superintendent Murphy on whether all materials have come in and whether they have been placed in the school before the 20th.
Thank you very much.
Board Member Craig?
So two things really quick. One is with regards to enrollment, and I know we have numbers for total enrollment, but I do think one of the challenges, and again, this is something we were starting to see a little bit of, and that's why some folks have been working hard at, is that you may have one school that has an overload of folks in a particular grade level and another school who's still trying to get people in at a particular grade level. And so I just think it also may be helpful in the future conversations, not just the total number of enrollment, but maybe a little bit of a breakdown in schools. The other thing in enrollment, actually, really quickly, is also the PK in kindergarten. And I think this may be something that we work a little bit better with Preschool Promise and some of the other vendors around, is establishing more dedicated pipeline work to grow the number of kindergarten and also the folks who are coming in kindergarten ready, because I think we have a great story about how they're more kindergarten ready. We had a wonderful video presented a year ago that talked about all the great things that Preschool Promise was doing to, and then the efforts that, you know, our funds have been generating quality educational resources for the students. But if they don't make it to our door, you know, there's an argument to be made that that's a lost opportunity. For staffing, and I think it's really helpful to see how we're getting very much online with how we're thinking about getting positions filled and these type of things. I do think maybe one of the conversations we can have as a next school year conversation is what are the needed resources and needed staffing skills in each building. Because I do think that's the other part of it, is that we've never really touched to what is a person, what all of the things we need to have done in a building, and who does that work, right? And I think in some ways, we've talked about this in the audit committee, that was one of the difficulties in doing school audits, is because you would say, okay, well, whose task is this? And in each building, it might be somebody else's, you know, it might be someone different's task, or who is charged with doing why, and it could be no one has that responsibility because we've just never refilled a role and dedicated other people to do other things, right? And so I think it'd just be helpful to maybe do some type of audit in that sense, not necessarily of a position audit, but like what is needed in each building? What are the jobs and the tasks that are needed, right? We know we need teachers, we know we need paras, we know we need food service workers, we know we need security, but like how much of that is dedicated to only this much of it is needed, that much is needed? And that would be really helpful as we rethink future budgets, because again, as we were just talking about, it's not gonna get easier, it's not really gonna get tighter. And we don't wanna lose out on the things that we're doing for our children to be successful, but we also maybe really need to rethink how some of those are offered. And I lied, I get one more thought to all of this, which is, I do think we need to at a much later date, again, also think about transportation in a way of also recognizing some of the changes that we've made as a district is going to also have the effect of increasing some of our transportation costs. And so looking at that for this year is another thing that we can certainly look at as a way to potentially rethink maybe certain things that we made as far as changes. Has it had a certainly a beneficial aspect in some ways of increasing enrollment in one building, but maybe we're also increasing cost when it comes to transporting students a further distance, or moving students out of the 1 mile or I think we are 1.25 mile radius or whatever that we don't provide transportation for. And I recognize it because we have I've seen individual examples of this, where a student could go to the school right next door to them, but that's not their neighborhood school. And we did a lot of effort to change that in College Hill and that part, but I think we also created a little bit of it in other areas. And so I think that's just something for us to pay attention to and examine as we go forward.
Board Member Matt.
Yes, I want to say first that Board Member Craig, you articulated my thoughts about the enrollment precisely, so thank you for that. I do have another question about enrollment. As we're looking at 9th grade, there is a decline there, and I don't know if this is pretty typical to what we see, but if there's trend data to kind of reflect what happens with 9th grade, obviously we want to make sure that we're seeing retention with our students, especially as they're matriculated into high school. And so just wanting to maybe have follow-up information about that, and also just wanting to inquire, do we have conversations with our families, or how do we engage our families to understand their decisions about retention within the district, and how we can further maybe, capitalize on that so that we are able to retain our students. And obviously we know that that helps with our revenue stream, right? So just maybe providing more clarity around that. And again, do we have an engagement plan with our families where we talk about enrollment or have those in-depth conversations with families?
We'll put something together and make sure. I think engagement is coming up in a meeting or so.
The last meeting.
Okay, all right. And then for Chief Burkhart, you spoke about students are able to receive their Metro Pass on the day of orientation or the first day of school. Is there an opportunity before the first day of school to receive that orientation card? So maybe if it's at the school, families can go and pick it up, because obviously they would probably have to pay or find other means of transportation if they don't have their card.
Yeah, so the schools will have their cards. I think some of them are being delivered right now. So it's a matter of, I don't want to speak on behalf of all the schools standing up here, because the second that I do that, I will have 67 emails tomorrow morning. But yes, they should be able to go to the school and pick up the card.
Okay, perfect. And then last question around transportation. Do families, I know that some families have been trying to reach out to maybe change their child's transportation options. So say they were a car rider or walker and they need bus transportation now. Do they need to contact the district central office, or can they make those changes at their school site?
They can either contact the centralized enrollment or the school. Centralized enrollment is probably the easiest, quickest way to do that.
Okay. And typically, how long does it take for them to receive, information communicating their transportation changes?
So a garden variety, i.e. they aren't moving, for example, if they move, there's also they have to verify the address. So there's that piece of it, which typically takes a day or two. But when we do the transportation, we will do a weekly reroute. So typically, if the information is in by Tuesday, for the following Monday is when that rolls over. We are trying for the beginning of school, like we do every year, to try to do that almost in real time. And I'll say that a couple of times, almost in real time. So if you register your student, on Tuesday and school starts on Wednesday, we're not able to turn around that quickly, but we're doing everything in our effort to get those students, onto a bus as quick as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Don't leave. I have a question, a couple questions for you. And you may not be able to answer them now, but perhaps by the beginning of school or by our Student Achievement Committee of the Whole, you can. I'm very interested to see how many siblings, and I know this, you're probably like, she's beating a dead horse, but there are siblings that live in the same home and have a younger sibling and then another sibling. So the stop is already established for the younger sibling. And I remember in the past, we did something like, I don't remember if we allowed the one to go to the Metro or if we allowed the Metro to go to, I don't remember, but we had a significant number of families that had that. They typically were at a specific school, but it was significant, meaning like over 10 or 15 a couple years ago. So can you give me some data? And I know you don't have that part now, but.
No, we do. I think there was a board request, and I believe that we added that to the board request. So I don't know if it has all the data you're looking for, but there is some data broken out by school on each one of the sibling numbers.
I'm interested in the school because we've been contacted by a specific school, which I won't say. But, and we've received 10, 15 emails. And so I'm wondering, is there a cost savings loss if the bus is already going there? So you're just adding a student, or is the cost per student, or is the cost per that bus going out?
Yeah, so that's the issue that we wrestle with a lot, because adding one student, obviously, in one scenario doesn't increase our cost at all, of course, because let's assume that there's room on that bus for that one student going from point A to point B. But we're talking about over 600 students. If we look at our average bus capacity rate right now, we're looking about 35 students per bus.
So wait a minute, you're saying 600 students have a sibling and they're living in the same address? going
Yes.
to the same space, but we're putting one on a metro
Yes.
and one on a yellow bus.
Correct.
600 students for the entire district.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so if we were to do that for all of those 600, we would just add back that savings. Not saying that we can't do it,
No,
but
I
it would just add back that savings because we're now increasing the number of buses on the road. So what we're trying to do is when we took those students off of our roster to route, now we're able to be a little bit more flexible. We're able to capture a larger number of students in a larger geographic area and get those students to the school, which also gives us the ability to do that with less number of buses. So when
okay.
you consider that for every bus that's on the road, for example, if you consider that to be roughly, and this is just kind of a food for thought, is that each bus costs us roughly $100,000. So for every bus we add on to our route, for example, the 8 schools that came up, and we can't pair those with any other schools, that's an additional $800,000 that we're adding to our budget literally overnight. So we're always working with those complexities of how do we transport all the students within Cincinnati to the schools that they want to go to with the least number of buses possible.
Okay, thank you. I'm still very interested in the data by school. That'd be
And
great.
and if the report doesn't have what you're looking for, we're happy to run some other
Okay.
analysis for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My additional question, which Board Member Craig started with, was the enrollment by school. I'm very interested in the enrollment by school, specifically the middle schools and the engagement plan for those. We did not engage those middle schools adequately last year. And I want to see what the enrollment numbers are, because right now we're just looking at 7th graders, 8th graders, or 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. But I'm very curious to see how full our middle schools are, and by school and by corridor. And then those costs there as well. So looking forward to that. And then also, I'm very interested to see the engagement plan. If we're going to be talking to the parents around transportation and that's planned out, what are the open house dates? And let's list that as well so that we can get that information. Very, very populated so that parents know what that is. The last thing that I'm interested in, but I'll make it an assignment around when are we seeing that drop off, to Board Member Mapp's point, around the 3rd grade? But I'm interested in those preschoolers that started 3 years ago, or kindergartners that started, what is their 3rd grade proficiency? So did preschool help them? Does kindergarten help them? Like what are we looking at the data and taking it off the page? So, okay. Board Member Lindy.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the entire presentation. It is an incredibly busy time of year. I feel like folks don't get much of a chance to take a breath over the summer, with the fact that less than a month ago, we were finishing this budget and schools are opening their doors very, very soon. So I want to start by saying thank you. It's exciting to see the staffing coming along, exciting to see transportation in a good place. As a dad, I'm looking forward to the beginning of the school year for lots of reasons, and self-interested and otherwise, but excited and grateful for all the work you all are doing. I have 3 questions I wanted to ask about. The first one, I wanted to return to a topic I raised during the budget, which is, as classrooms are starting back up again, how are we as a district supporting educators in the use of the curriculum that we've purchased? I really appreciate what the superintendent recommended and what our board passed in the budget. And so my first question was, in this work to use the instructional coaches, the district-wide mentors, and the lead teachers to support educators on curriculum implementation, what's been done so far? What's going to be coming up in the next 4 to 6 weeks? Could we just hear a little bit about where that work is?
Yeah, so we were super pleased about the conversations we had during negotiations. And Julia can talk a little bit about how we're going to pivot with how we have traditionally used our district-wide mentors into this role. And then the other thing I would want you to know is we do have an RFP out right now for professional development in this area for both teachers and administrators. And I believe that window closes on the 12th of August. But Julie, will you share conversations about district-wide mentors?
Absolutely. First of all, today was the first day of device pickup for new teachers. And so it was really an exciting day at Woodward this morning because we got to see and meet some of our newest educators, and that will happen all week. And this Thursday will be the day dedicated to curriculum for new teachers. So those teachers that are newest to us will spend all day on Thursday learning about how to access the curriculum using their devices, how to get into it, where are all those materials found. And then on Friday, they'll work with the positive school culture and how is it that they engage with the curriculum and the culture with the help of the district-wide mentors. So we've got some exciting stuff coming up for the newest teachers. With respect to district-wide mentors, I just want to really give them a shout out. They're some of our finest instructors in the district, and so we're really pleased about that. And so I took some time this last week and met with Emily Campbell, and she and I sort of put our brains together thinking through what does instruction from an instructional coach look like versus instruction from a district-wide mentor look like, and how do we overlap those and make sure that they're both engaged in using our curriculum as a jumping off point. So the first thing we said is, well, we need to make sure that the district-wide mentors have access and know exactly, because sometimes they don't know what their caseload is, right? So they may have taught ninth grade science for a long time, but now they're going to work with a seventh grade science teacher, and so they haven't accessed that part of the curriculum as often. So what we're going to do is work with the district-wide mentors later in August, just in about 2 weeks. And Emily's going to speak with them and give them a needs assessment for them to say, here's some areas I don't feel as equipped, I don't know as much about, and these are people that are on my caseload, so I really want to know more about this. And then she will come through with the instructional coaches and work with the district-wide mentors on the areas that they know that they need support in, so that as they are helping teachers, as the instructional coaches do, they will use the curriculum as their jumping off point. So if a teacher is having trouble, for instance, maybe a district-wide mentor watches them teach, and they see that, oh, the next lesson really needs to have more student-to-student engagement. Instead of just coming up with an example for how to do that, we can say, let's look at the curriculum and see what your next lesson is, and how, in fact, could we include more student-to-student engagement in that lesson. So really using that curriculum as a foundational piece for how we support teachers makes a lot of sense to us, and we just want to make sure the DWMs are equipped to do that. They are phenomenal with instructional strategies, I have no doubt. I just know that the breadth of what they need to know, because the caseload, there are only 9 of them, and if they're supporting all new teachers, they may be teaching in some areas that they're less familiar with. And so in those areas, we do want to make sure that happens. As we talked about this summer in negotiations, we were able to work very closely with CFT to bring back some of the evaluative roles of the district-wide mentors, and so we're actually meeting with them tomorrow to talk with them even more about that. I'm sorry, the district-wide mentors tomorrow. Last week, Julie Sellers and Kendra and Travis Rowley and I met, and we really talked through what does that look like? What does that start to look like? This idea of I'm supporting you, and now I'm going to evaluate you on what I've been supporting you on. So that support and accountability lever really are two parts of the same teeter-totter, essentially. I'm going to support you a lot, then I'm going to just sort of see what the accountability for that support looks like. And if it's not quite where it needs to be, then I need to support a little bit more before I just hold accountable. So this is not a gotcha. This is not any of that. This is more about thinking about how do we have a continuum of services from that same person using the curricular materials that we have and the resources as the instrument to do that.
I really appreciate all of this, and I think I'm going to try not to ask a bunch of questions. I'd love to ask a ton of follow-up, but I want to be thoughtful about the hour and our collective efforts to get out of here at a reasonable time this evening. I think here's my request. Would it be possible, and it doesn't have to be tomorrow, there's a lot going on, but let's say sometime in the next couple of weeks, would it be possible to get 2 things from the administration? I'm happy to make this as an assignment now or later. But this can be very short. But I never asked in past years about what the instructional coaches were doing, what the district-wide mentors were doing, what the lead teachers were doing. It would be really helpful for me just to have, even if it's just 1 page, here's what last year looked like. Here's how this year is different. given the way that we're focusing with these folks on curriculum implementation. That was request one. And then request two, as we go through the year with this strategy, I'm really interested in what you all are looking at to know whether or not it's working. So I'm assuming that we want to get some information, not at the end of the year, but, maybe I'm making this up, October, whenever it is.
Sure.
Like, what is it that you all are going to be looking at that will tell us whether or not the strategy is doing what it's supposed to be doing? And I think if, with that information, I'll think about it. I might follow up with folks who have questions, but it'll save us some time tonight. Those were the sets of things that I wanted to ask about. And Superintendent, thank you you answered my next question, which was about the $350,000 investment. And the RFP is posted.
Yes, sir.
I am not in the habit of looking at RFPs because I don't submit bids to them. But if I'd like to send this to some groups so that we get the most competitive, best bids from everybody. If I want to look for it, where do I look for it?
We'll get it to the whole board in the morning, if not tonight.
Okay, it is public though, like if somebody
It is
wanted to
public.
find it. Okay, okay. I think, I said three, that was two, that's my very last question. Some meetings ago, we had a number of folks come to our hearing of the public to talk about how challenging a time this spring was for students whose families are immigrants to this country. And one of the assignments I asked the board to make was that the administration put together some kind of working group, task force, something with folks inside of the district, outside of the district, to come up with ideas for how we could be as supportive and as helpful as possible. At some point, if there is an update tonight, great. It can also be at a next meeting. I would just love an update on where that is and how that's going.
We definitely can do a much more detailed report, but what we would want everyone to know is the board has made a huge investment in this area already, in the form of there's an entire group of people who work with our immigrant population, anywhere from family and community engagement. For example, the group was at Saturday's Back to School Fest, doing a great job. We do have support at our enrollment sessions, not only the pop-up enrollments, but also in the customer care center, so that if there is a need for interpreters, we have that available to our families as well. We provide our staff with professional development. They do a conference every summer that also happened this past summer. And so we can give you a much more detailed look at the scope of the work and the investment that's been made.
I am genuinely glad that we are doing all of those things. I think that is different from the question I was trying to ask, and I'm not totally sure. I could be wrong.
Okay.
What I heard you describe were a series of things that CPS has done in the past to support immigrant families. I'm glad we're doing it, and we should keep doing it. I think what I was hearing from some constituents was we should do more. And I don't always know what that is. This is very quickly outside my expertise. And so what I think the assignment was to pull together a group of people inside CPS and also outside CPS to try to think outside the box and try to come up with what are things we haven't yet done that we might do. And so I'm happy for that to get checked against what the assignment was. If I'm wrong, let me know. But I think we should keep doing the things we have done. I'm also interested in what new things, what big ideas do people have about what we might do, and it might require people outside of CPS because we can't do everything. But also, please, colleagues, too, if I'm getting that old assignment incorrect, please let me know.
No, you're not. It was, the request from the community was to do something different in addition to. So that was definitely, but we do have board assignments listed. The superintendent posted them, like the list. So go back through, it should be there, go back through and see that. And I'll go back and look as well to double check. But I remember I've been stopped multiple times by many of our teaching staff and our support staff that they would like to have that started. So for sure that with regard to the professional development training, I'm wondering why could we do some of that in-house? Because I think it's great to have people bid on it to come in, and there may be facets of it that need to be, but I'm wondering, do we have the capability to do some of that ourselves with our own team? Like we're talking about a Montessori program and being able to train our own staff. So I'm looking at some of our own best practices as well and being able to offer some of that to better our staff and build that pipeline. Any other questions, board members? Mr. Crossett?
This is anecdotal, but to Ben's point, a few days ago, I was walking into the building here, and there was a family coming in, and they didn't speak any English. Came in the front door, I helped them get in the guest door. They went right to customer care, and the Spanish-speaking folks in that department took care of them right away. It was pretty impressive how smooth they got in and how well they were cared for whatever that's worth. I observed that myself.
All right. Thank you very much. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Mr.
No,
Murphy?
I wanted to make sure I didn't misinterpret or mishear what you were sharing, Superintendent. Like there's a lot going on. My memory is imperfect. And if I mischaracterized anything you were saying about the immigration piece, please tell me. And I appreciate all your hard work.
No, you have not mischaracterized anything.
Okay, thank you.
We have, I'm sorry, okay, we have various topics for board matters this evening. Many of them we've already covered, so this should be pretty quick. A reminder to everyone in the public and the board members that we do have a joint city CPS meeting this Wednesday in 2 days at 5:30. This time it is at City Hall. I think parking is directly across the street. For the public, you're welcome to come. That agenda has already been posted. Ms. Phyllis confirmed those that could attend. If you said that you couldn't, but now you can, please let us know so that we can make those accommodations. We have now appointed our CPS preschool promise volunteers to the Board of Managers, and so oh no. Wait, we did, wait, I'm sorry. Oh, we didn't do that. Oh, Lord, I'm trying to get us out of there. For the CPS appointment to the preschool promise, I was just trying to rush us. We had a goal, guys, I'm sorry. We will reach out to finalize that a little bit further. We've gotten one self-appointed request and then another nomination. So I will reach out to the NAACP for clarification and report that back by the next meeting. Choosing a date for the Roberts Health Center opening. Board member Bolton, this has
Yes.
been your drive.
Thank you. Yes, and I'll do this as quickly as I can. As many of you know, the community has raised a significant amount of money, and we have already opened a wonderful health center at Roberts. And as you know, we also have had the soft, not opening, but the soft dedication, if you will, to thank the funders, basically. That's what that event was, and about 100 people came to that, and it was a great event. I know the superintendent, of course, was there, and the deputy, and the president was there, and I was there, and I think somebody else came in from the board as well, if I recall. What we want to do now, though, is have a rather large, more public dedication of the center that we, as you know, as a board, decided to name after Darlene Kamine. And we wanted to kind of fit that in to our celebration of the opening of school, the first quarter, or do something. And so we're trying to find a date that fits within the school calendar that would also fit within the wider Cincinnati community calendar, which, by the way, as we all know, is an election year, not only for board members but and a renewal, but more particularly, it's a city council election year as well. So some of the dates that have been suggested, first and foremost, were to be cognizant and be aware of the Jewish holidays that are that occur during the first quarter of this school year. Rosh Hashanah starts on the 22nd. And goes for a couple of days to the 24th, if I'm saying that right. And then we also have Yom Kippur in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd or so of October. It's been suggested to try to think about dates and have the administration determine what dates those might be. And those dates could be also associated with the end of the first quarter, which comes along on the 17th of October. And we could also go earlier and try to be there before Rosh Hashanah on September 22nd. So it's an attempt to highlight the fall and celebrate the naming and the dedication of that facility. So if the board members have some interest, I would assume we'd all be there. There are some dates that work in the week of the 15th of September. There's some dates that work as well in the week of the 6th or the 13th of October. So those are 3 weeks, and of course, if the administration can find a better week, that's perfectly okay too. But we wanted to try to fit it within the district calendar and testing and whatever else is going to be in the way. But be very cognizant of those as 2 Jewish holidays, particularly as kind of bookends or starting points for selecting a date. That's what I have. If board members have anything they'd like to share.
So you said the week of September 15th, the week of October 6th, and the week of October 13th, right?
Those right now are the ones that had been suggested that seem to be the most open. And, doing it during the school day, doing it after the school day, however it works, whatever we have, been traditionally doing. It should be a rather large ceremony, because I think, too, we need to be celebrating one of the things we do best, which is the school-based health centers throughout the district. We continue to be the leader in this state and frankly in the country for those. And this is going to be with the tremendous work. And I've been reminded any number of times that virtually all of the work was done in-house. And that we've benefited in the $1 million club or more for the service and the facility. A wonderful building anyway, but now it's very exciting with a separate entrance and everything.
So that's really kind of an assignment that you're giving them of those 3 weeks, pick one.
Hopefully the administration can find a date that works.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
All righty. Any other comments? So we've got the CPS Foundation Memorandum of Understanding. We did discuss that. Board Member Crossett is the appointed person, has a list of things that he's working on, and he's going to get us that back for the next meeting. The 90-day withdrawal. I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Just quickly, I didn't get a chance to share. So I know that with the CPS Foundation, we are working through navigating that transition in terms of foundation piece, vendor piece. But I do want to highlight, I do appreciate their willingness to support our students with having the arts available. We know that that is critical to our students' overall wellness. So I do want to stress that I greatly appreciate that.
Thank you. And thank you to ABC/Foundation for continuing the work to support our students. We've got next up the 90-day Withrow and Taft LSDMC Principal Selection Engagement Plan. Superintendent Murphy, you've got a team that's going to address that.
Yes, ma'am, I can get it started, and there are others who are available if there are any specific questions. So what you do see before you projected on the screen from Rob, we were charged with ensuring that the district's policy around principal selection aligned with our practices and our strategies. And so I'm very grateful for everyone, including board members, who participated and shared their thoughts and suggestions. So as we scroll down, this starts with the composition and the representation. Then it talks about the different steps whenever there is a principal vacancy in terms of notification, in terms of an initial LSDMC meeting, what the posting for the principalship would look like, as well as how candidates will be vetted. Step 4 talks about the interview process, planning, and the execution of those interviews. There's a great conversation about quorum, the requirements of a quorum, what that looks like, sounds like, feels like. And then we broke it also down into some particular special circumstances that the administration may have to address, whether there are interim principal placements, whether there is a school in a consolidation, a merger, a restructure, and possibly a redesign, as well as what those communication protocols will look like, and then finally the transition and onboarding for that new principal. And then you see a list of some key principles we use to create this work. And then there is a suggested timeline that is very broad, listed here over a course of a 10-week period of time. And then I also would want to draw your attention to page 7 in that same deck, Rob, if you don't mind, because we were specifically asked for an update where we are with the Withrow and Taft LSDMC principal selection process. You are already aware that we did create the posting for the position on July the 1st, again, page 7, on July the 1st, and we left the posting up for the standard 10 days. Yes, sir, thank you. And then on July the 28th, Human Resources Department reviewed the candidates and are providing recommendations to, in this case, Assistant Superintendent Randolph, because she handles the high school. There have been conversations with the chairs, LSDMC chairs, for both of the schools, both Taft and Withrow. We are looking at where there are vacancies. Previously, there were parental vacancies for both LSDMCs. And then the engagement with the stakeholder groups will take place August the 18th through the 27th. We will restart the needs assessment with each of those LSDMCs, and we plan to conduct interviews September the 9th through the 15th, with September 16th and 17th candidates being recommended to me for conversation, and then my recommendation will come to you. The plan is either during the September 22nd board meeting or the October 4th board meeting.
Are you done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Board members, do you have any questions? And this has been shared with all of the LSDMCs, particularly those that are in questions, that Taft and Withrow?
Yes, ma'am.
The timeline has? Okay.
I don't want to like have someone like say, oh, I didn't get the timeline. So I actually met with both LSDMC chairs last week. I have a meeting tomorrow, an LSDMC meeting with the Withrow, and we are going to review this. We didn't want to get ahead of this meeting. So we'll review this, and then Ms. Kidd from Taft is scheduling the LSDMC meeting. So once we went through this, I shared this with both chairs, but this has not been shared yet with the whole LSDMC.
Okay. Board Member Matt?
So thank you for the collaboration on developing this framework. I hope that is helpful to the administration as well as to the LSDMCs moving forward with the principal selection process. I just want to make sure, so I know that some of this is kind of generally stated here or broadly stated, but it will adhere to what the framework is that has been developed.
Yes, and I shared the framework. We went more in depth with Mr. Bloxham because we had a very longer and in-person meeting. Ms. Kidd and I have another meeting set up. We were trying to get the whole LSDMC together Friday, but if not, her and I are going to touch base again to review a little bit more in depth that document. Our time together was a little shorter.
Okay, thank you. And then just finally, one question, not so much about the Withrow or Taft selection process, but the process overall. I do know that there is the circumstances in which an interim may have to be in position. Could you all provide, or maybe just incorporate within that section, some language in terms of like how long that could potentially be, and it doesn't have to be specific, but our policy does state with the principal select, or selection of principals, it does state that the appointment should be as short as possible. So could there be some language pertaining to that in those, you know, those type of examples for the selection of an interim?
Yes.
And that's all for me. Thank you.
Yes.
Great. The only other question that I had is that I think, I want to say it was one of my colleagues, made a comment that the interim should not be involved. Does that say that in the selection process? Does that say that in here anywhere?
You mean as the principal?
Yes, the interim principal, my apologies.
We can write it as a statement. Typically, the principal is not at all involved in
Well, the principal in general sits on the LSDMC, right?
but not involved in the principal selection process? Is that what you're?
Yes, yes. Well, which also included selecting the members to sit on the LSDMC as if it needed to be built out. Does that make sense?
Say it one more time, I'm sorry.
So some LSDMCs did not have their full complement, and the principal needed to select people to be on the LSDMC. In the event that that principal was an interim principal, it was suggested that they not be involved in selecting people to sit on an LSDMC that would potentially pick them as the person.
Sure, and I did share with the policy, does say that the stakeholder groups really should be the ones selecting no matter what, whether it's interim or a normal principal. So last year, specifically, like we needed a non-CFT rep at the school. So we walked through the process because it was a newer principal, and I, shared with them the process around making sure that they send out an email, they ask, who's interested, and then they do a vote. Same thing with CFT members, they should be voted on by ILT. So we have, I've reviewed that. So that is in the process, but I think a little maybe differently than what you're saying, but that really is how it should be, is
It should be. I think there was a comment that we wanted to ensure that these interim positions did not have a potential conflict of interest by selecting people that advocated for them. It was a truly authentic process is what I'm thinking. And I've read this, but I haven't gone through with a comb. I just wanted to ensure that that was reflected.
in both of these specific cases, I specifically have been working with the AP, and I've been copying the LSCMC chair to say, you're going to need to be the lead as you're the AP listed on the document. And so they're the ones that are like sending out a communication to all the parent and then sending it back to the LSDMC to say, this person said they were interested, this person said they were interested.
Sure. Thank you. Vice President Bolden?
I want to be really clear about that. The board, I can't recall frankly if it was a motion. I think it was a motion, but it might have been a resolution. I cannot remember about this specific topic. If a principal is up for the principalship, they do not participate, and that's been practice and policy, I think. And we specifically said if there is an interim principal and they are up for it, they do not participate. So it was very direct, and I think that you all you agreed to that, and that was understood. But it was very clear that that would be the case for the interim as well. And I think it was some kind of motion that we passed, and it was a result of a little bit of discussion and trying to find some consensus. So if there's an interim that's up for it, obviously they cannot participate in any way, shape, or form and try to do anything since they're up, and they would be excluded anyway, but we wanted to make that clear.
And I think it is understood, but it was definitely enforced by the board that needs to be a point of contention that the administration needs to abide by. Any other question? Board member
I
Matt?
just wanted to affirm what you all are saying. It is in there, it's under step 3, position posting and candidate vetting, and it is directly referencing the conflict of interest policy.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We are cooking with grease, everybody. Was that the end of your presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Board members, were there any extra assignments that we had? Board member, Vice President Bolden? Oh, I'm sorry. Board member Lindy?
I'm agnostic as to order here. I have nothing new. I just wanted to recap the ones that I had shared before about those three positions last year versus this year. What are we going to look for to know whether it's working or not? And then an update on an internal, external working group to think big about how we can support students from immigrant families. I don't want to assume there's majority support for that. I want to check to see if there's majority support for that. But those were the assignments that I was requesting.
Okay. I have a very simple one, and it'll sound strange, but I would like the board to have a list of the schools in Cincinnati Public Schools and the actual names and IRNs that they go by, that is registered or accepted by, is it the Ohio Department folks or the state of Ohio? Periodically, we have to do this because we change names or we change programs. And I think we're in that phase right now, especially with the middle school coming online. So whatever is, because what we call some schools is not necessarily what the state calls them. And I would like to see what those two lists are. Thank you.
Board Member Matt.
Yes, just the assignment about the trend data for ninth grade and what our engagement plan is for retention with our families.
I think I gave my assignment, but I'm going to reiterate it, that I wanted to get some data around the third grade proficiency and the effectiveness of preschool. So those students that participated in preschool, how did they, if we can get that data, how did they do on their third grade proficiency? I'd like the enrollment by schools, specifically the middle schools, and an engagement plan for the middle schools, and the transportation by building for those families that, and then I'd also like, this is an interesting request, but the superintendent made a list of the administrative priorities to the foundation. I'd like for you to show us that list or share that list with us about what you listed were the priorities that you wanted the foundation to work on. And I was at the meeting where you shared some of that, so I'd like that. And just to be presented to the board as things that you felt the foundation should be working on. That's it for me. I do have a question. With regard to Bramble Montessori, do we happen to have a principal for that facility?
Yes.
Did we choose someone on the inside or did we choose someone on the outside?
We assigned the principal who was previously at the lab school at Xavier as part of that staffing piece where the entire staff would come over.
So did we give our current people an opportunity to apply for that? Or I felt like I have felt like Bramble was sometimes a little separate. It's been treated a little separate. And I know we talked about we talked about that a little bit, but did we just not give our own people?
We did
an
not.
opportunity?
You may recall, part of the proposal was that their entire staff would be able to come to be a part of our new Montessori lab school. From
And
the
I know
very,
that- and I know that there was a concern about credentialing, so of their particular staff member, their particular principal, that has been resolved?
she does have a principal license in the state of Ohio.
Okay. I'm a little concerned that our own staff weren't part of that, but it's okay.
Well, I guess to that point is on the slide, right? I mean, we just worked through the principal selection process, and we have special circumstances that it doesn't align with what we just worked through. So I guess I'm curious to know, was there thought around having a special LSDMC convene, or should that be added to, I mean, because it's saying right here, under a consolidation, merger, et cetera, and that would fall under that example. So I guess I'm looking for clarity on that.
Well, moving forward, they will have an LSDMC. But in terms of this process with selecting a principal, it was determined by the board, with your permission and your support, that we would take the entire staff, and our HR department worked through onboarding all of them who had an interest in joining Cincinnati Public Schools. So the teachers, the paraprofessionals, and including the principal.
Okay, just one final question. I mean, and I don't recall how the proposal or the MOU looks, but in taking on the entire staff, does that mean that if they would then still serve in the same capacity as they served at the previous school?
They are, yes.
Okay.
So I'm gonna just share that I have some concern about that, because I have some concern. I know there was a credentialing issue, and that may have been resolved, but I wonder what we're telling our own team. And I'm all for hiring and bringing them on board, but I'm just wondering, what are we telling our own around that, and what are we saying around the policy when that should be considered a special circumstance based off of what we just got a presentation for. I'm a little concerned, but I'll vote accordingly. Anything else, any other assignments? Vice President Bolton.
I don't want to leave it there. We already have at least 2 schools where the principals aren't in place yet, and, we've kind of given the impression that we're concerned about that, this whole selection process. I've been here a long time, and we've never lifted a whole school. So it is, to your point, it is a special circumstance. So I could see where we would add that under certain special circumstances. I mean, the closest we can come to, I think, is maybe Hyde Park, maybe LEAP, but even that was sort of an internal. It was an external school coming into our system, coming into our inventory. So I think a reference to special circumstance somewhere in there might be, because I'm going to tell you, a lot of school districts in this county aren't going to survive, and because of this property tax issue. And this may not be the last time that there are schools available that would be of interest in joining us, be they private or public.
Well, let me just clarify. I don't ever want to diminish the value of what people bring to our students. I think we found there's value everywhere. The board is charged with policy. Policy includes an LSDMC formation that includes a principal selection. So, or the process of that. So if we spend time clarifying what are we saying about the policy that we're not even following, although there are special circumstances, there still should be some consistency there, which was the whole entire purpose of us having this concern around 2 schools, is the lack of consistency in the selection process. I'm not doubting the value of what is being brought to the table. I don't want to diminish the value of what we already have within our buildings, within our district, and also within the process that we've already outlined and spent an excessive amount of time talking about, because it was challenged at the community level. So again, I'm happy to vote accordingly. I do want it to be said that I think that there's inconsistencies, which is exactly the reason why we were here in the first place. But does anyone have any other assignments? Board Member Craig.
So one, just a revision of, or a review of the assignment I gave, and then one, just a thought real quick. And I think this is another reason, maybe a assignment to the board that we take a little bit more time with some of these things as we're voting on these things, because I think, quite honestly, we are voting on stuff, and then after the fact, we're coming back and asking, why did we do, why did we do, why did we, why did we, when it was stuff that was plainly seen at the time that we voted, or could have been plainly seen at the time that we voted. And I think this just gets, again, to a need to slow down sometimes when we're making these substantial changes or making these substantial moves, because we are missing those. With that in mind also, I just wanted to reiterate part of an assignment that I gave at our last meeting in July about creating the template. And I think this is part of the reason I want us to do these things in this fashion, is because I think we need to take the necessary time for some of these things that are more complicated and harder decisions. And if we give the authority over to the superintendent or to treasurer or whoever to make certain decisions, it really is, it puts us in a bad situation if we then come back after the fact and say, why did you do X when we told you to do X, right? Or why did you do Y when we told you to do Y? And so I would hope that as we approach some of these additional things that will certainly be coming up, that we can take a little bit more time to review some of those things and truly dive into those questions at the time as opposed to after. And I hope that this also, by giving the superintendent and the treasurer and the team of folks time to put together materials and resources, that will also allow us to be able to make those decisions in a more timely manner, with the time necessary to review, the time necessary to discuss, the time necessary to understand the effects of the decisions that we make. So I just wanted to reiterate the assignment that I gave last time, and just, again, I think this is something, an example of some of the discussion we had today about the need to have a real good framework for our budget as we go forward, because I am terrified of what we will get out of our state legislature coming up, but I'm also terrified of the fact that, to maybe Vice President Bolton's point, there may be some school districts around us and some schools, period, around us that we don't wish ill on any other place around us, but we know that there are things that they may be needing and assistance with, or maybe falling because of state funding. And so we should be in the best situation to be prepared to absorb as much as we can as we go forward.
Board Member Crossett.
Yes, I think this, I do see the Bramble School as sort of a special circumstance. It was unusual for us. I think, not tonight, but maybe we think about it in the future, it could be that we go back to the policy committee. We may need to create a whole separate policy for when we absorb a new school, rather than just have it try to fit into our normal policies, and use this as a learning experience, maybe create a checklist component of that policy, and that way, especially if we might have other opportunities coming in the future, it might be just just put something together that helps special circumstances. So just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you all for sharing. I do think that we definitely have some work to do, that we can make some adjustments, and I'm going to also invite the administration to make some adjustments as well when you know that things are coming up that may put us in an awkward situation like this particular one, so that we're not talking about it here. Kind of give us a heads up. That would be most helpful to me. I know we did talk about bringing all of Bramble staff on. That was one thing, but we never went back and revisited that at all. And I know there were some concerns around credentialing for some of that particular piece of it. So it would have been really nice to kind of have some updates along the way, so that it's not right here in this moment. And that's definitely something that we can work on as well. Any other assignments? A proposed consent agenda has been distributed. Do board members, the superintendent, or the treasurer have any exception items to the consent agenda? Board Member Matt.
Yes, so I would like to, I have exceptions for the superintendent's report on page 2. Section D, line item 1, that is a no. And under the treasurer's report, can you hear me? Okay. Under the treasurer's report, page 5, line item 7, page 14, line items 3 and 4, and page 21, line item 2.
Point of clarification, please. On the treasurer's report, you're abstaining from those things?
Correct.
The superintendent's report, did you say no?
Yes. I would like to, so I'm in support of the rest of the recommendations for the superintendent's report.
So
Accept that.
Dan, on a consent agenda item, specific line item, a no vote, does she just vote against the consent in whole?
I'm like, I'm sure we've done this before.
I've done abstentions
mics.
before, but not
Yeah.
no's that I know of, anyway.
You're right.
I think she can vote no, Board Member Mapp can vote no, or ask to take it out for a separate vote of the full board.
On a specific line
I
item?
think so,
Okay,
yeah.
got it, thank you.
That's what we've done before, is taking it out. Do you want to take out the
No, I
superintendent
could-
recommendations, or do you want to just vote no on that?
I'm just voting no on that.
So I'm asking to take the recommendations out, because I asked for a specific clarification on one section that the superintendent was going to verify, and I would like for that to be verified around an assignment. I asked for clarification about that one.
So you're referring to the treasurer's report and the ABC contract?
No, I'm talking about the superintendent's recommendations.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I asked for a specific clarification around a change in the assignment.
A change in assignment?
Yes, ma'am, the one that I asked you about earlier. Do you remember? Page 14.
So you're pulling the
I just
superintendent's
want the
report?
superintendent.
There's a
okay.
request to pull it
Yes.
by one member.
Yeah, I got you. I was just clarifying.
Thank you.
But I'm ready to vote on the rest of it if you want.
Oh, you're pulling that section or the entirety of the superintendent's report?
Well, I can pull that particular section because that's the only thing that I'm asking about is that particular section of that report because I needed clarification about it.
And for the public, what is that section?
That particular section is change in assignment from an interim to a manager. Section E,
I'm sorry, what page are you on?
14.
Section E, thank you. And you're voting no, or you're asking that to be pulled off?
I'm asking that to be pulled for the further information that I requested earlier.
You gonna pull it?
So it can be pulled from the consent agenda, but I think the board would need to vote on whether to move it to move the vote to a later date.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine.
So is there a motion?
To pull the superintendent recommendations.
So we have to, need a motion to
No, he
move
said
it
it could
to
be
another
pulled.
date?
Just that particular item or the entire recommendation? Okay.
What's the roll call then?
We haven't gotten that far yet. I think we're voting on the consent agenda, right, Dan? And then we would vote on that particular portion of the superintendent's recommendations. So can we vote on the recommendations in totality and then that particular section, or? Okay, so let's vote on.
After the vote.
Let's vote on the consent agenda minus the superintendent recommendation.
No, my understanding is that you're going to vote on the consent agenda with that item pulled out.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait,
Do we have a
I was gonna
motion
say, I
for the
need a
consent?
motion. I just wanted to make sure she was clarified. Okay. Is there a motion for accept the consent agenda minus that particular line item of the superintendent's recommendations?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Jen, superintendent, treasurer Wyden.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Mr. Crossan?
Yes.
Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
Ms. Mapp?
Yes.
Vice President Bolton?
Okay, we didn't have any discussion, but I'm going to say no because I'm worried about the loss of the consent agenda generally right now.
President Moffett.
Yes.
Folks, we're going to have to go back to just not having a consent agenda at this point in time.
Well, I'm not exactly sure why
No,
you would say
no,
that,
and
because the consent agenda has all of those things in there that we don't need to vote on individually.
But the concept is, we'll have to clean it up before it becomes the consent agenda. Or it's not, we just have to figure out some prior way of doing it. I'm not saying we shouldn't do this. I'm just saying we need a pre-step before we create the consent agenda. If we know something's going to require some discussion, if we know that it's an issue, it's just, we'll create a pre-process.
I think the process could be just utilizing, pulling something, the superintendent can pull something when a board member asks a question, or the treasurer can pull something if there's been a question, so that we don't have to do that on the floor. They can clarify it later, and then the consent agenda can be approved. But if there is a significant question around specific things that can't be answered immediately, I think it would be prudent to just pull those things.
And in practice has occurred that individual or group of members ask the superintendent to do that prior to the meeting, if possible, and then the superintendent can say yes or no, and maybe that'll happen. I know a couple times I've asked, especially with Superintendent Wright, she would be very pleasant and say, sorry, and then I would just vote against whatever it was, because I didn't want to pull stuff that was there. But I think this is good. We're still in our first year of consent agenda, so, and it's
Sure.
getting a little bit more complex than it's supposed to be.
Okay, well, I don't think it's complex, but we can definitely finish discussing it. Now we need to vote on the particular line item that we pulled from the consent agenda. And Dan, is that a motion, or do we just discuss why I'm wanting it to be pulled, or what do we do?
To table it.
So the item that was pulled is now on the floor. A member could ask for it to be voted on this evening, a member could ask for it to be tabled, but you pulled one item from the consent agenda.
Okay, so I pulled that item because I wanted clarification around the qualifications of going from a non-manager position to a manager position with regard to union involvement, if there are any other specifics that could cause us some concern later. And I asked about that because it has come up in other positions, and I wanted to make sure that we're being consistent. So I just asked for a little bit of time and clarification so that we don't have any problems later. And that couldn't be confirmed at the time that I asked, so that's why I asked to pull that particular.
Madam Chair, then, based upon what you just said, I would like to make a motion that we table that item for a later date until there is clarification.
Okay, thank you.
I second that.
Thank you. Do we need to do a vote for that? And Treasurer Wagner?
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Mr. Crossen?
Yes.
Mr. Lindy?
Yes.
Ms. Mapp?
Yes.
Vice President Bolton?
Yes?
President Moffett?
Yes. So, there's no more assignments. Everything's good. The chair will entertain a motion for adjournment. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Do you have anything else?
He's just
They
kidding.
Motion
looked
to-
really confused out there.
Motion to adjourn?
Okay, second?
It was
Second.
Second?
Second.
All right, well, we are unanimously
Unanimous.
agreeing that it is a
acclamation.